Chapter 1653. The Heaven Realm, in addition to the martial soul's ultimate sublimation. In an instant, the heavenly sword and the power of the 10 origins exploded to the extreme. Tianyang, on the basis of the complete explosion of the heaven-devouring secret skill, rushed up the steps of the divine state. He had surpassed the demigod state and reached the true divine state. Previously, although Tianyang had surpassed the peak demigod realm with the heaven-devouring secret skill, he could still feel that he was still lacking when facing a true divine state. It was because of this that Tianyang could not display the divine state's realm. He could only use various means to display the combat power of the divine state or even the middle stage of the divine state. It was like a mountain. The mountain itself was not very tall, but there were too many things piled up on it, causing it to continue to rise until it reached a terrifying height. Ah 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 ah! The black-robed old man roared crazily. Even though his body had been cut in half and the 10 origin forces were still crazily destroying his body, he was still struggling. "I'm going to kill you!" The old man in black roared, and in the next moment, his divine power exploded. The middle stage of the divine state, compared to Tianyang, was much more powerful. It completely exploded. In the next moment, he planned to put his body back together and kill Tianyang. However, Tianyang's expression did not change. The great void sword embryo in his hand shone brightly. "Heavenly sword, firmament emperor's sword!" Tianyang roared. In his sea of soul, the tip of the firmament emperor's sword, which had merged with the heavenly sword, shone brightly. In the next moment, Tianyang's body flashed and shot out. The power of the martial soul's ultimate sublimation would not disappear so quickly. In other words, Tianyang was still in the state of the divine state. "Heaven realm, heavenly sword! Annihilation!" Tianyang roared, and the immortal fire and true destructive flames burned at the same time. A sword slashed out. 100,000 miles of sword light appeared again. The strongest version of the heavenly sword. Boom! The sword light that was 100,000 miles long seemed like it was going to split the world apart. The surrounding space could not withstand the terrifying pressure and began to crumble. There wasn't any leakage of power. Instead, it was because this sword was simply too powerful. Ordinary space did not even have the ability to bear this sword. Even if it was broken, it would only have the possibility of breaking down quickly. However, it still wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure. It was a sword that could slay gods. What? Seeing this, the black-clothed old man was completely stunned. His pupils shrank to the size of a needle tip. This is impossible. How could a person who hadn't even reached God realm, no demigod realm, possibly execute an attack of this caliber? Even the top sects, powers, and clans of the Eastern Cloud territory, and even existences like the Jiang family, the Snow God's bloodline, and the Dragon Hall. It was also impossible for such a genius to be born. Therefore, he must die. The black-robed old man's face instantly turned hideous when he saw the 100,000 miles of sword light coming at him. Previously, his killing intent towards Tianyang wasn't so strong. After all, in his eyes, Tianyang was just an ant that he could casually crush. Although he had some talent and strength, it was completely insufficient in the eyes of a late-stage God realm expert like him. After using Tianluo prison, he didn't even need to make a move to force Tianyang into a dead end. However, it was also because of this that he didn't move much, and this had allowed Tianyang to grab hold of an impossible opportunity and push the black-robed old man into a dead end. Today, if he let Tianyang escape, even if Tianyang couldn't enter Emperor Qing's secret treasure, he would lose such a huge opportunity. However, as long as he was still alive, he had a chance to step into the demigod realm and then into the god realm. Then, he would kill him, not only for his grandson, but also for himself. Tianluo prison blood, Tianluo destruction. the black-clothed old man roared. Tianluo Prison, which had fallen into silence because of Tianyang's sudden explosion, suddenly shook. The previous space had been constantly collapsing because of the appearance of the Sky Sword. However, now, because Tianluo Prison was operating again, it became incomparably stable. At the same time, the power of a small world was released from it. Darkness, intertwined with blood, and endless destructive power rolled towards Tianyang from all directions. Tianluo Prison was a small world created by the black-clothed old man with his own divine Tao nomological laws. In fact, this prison blood Tianluo destruction was the price of the black-clothed old man not being able to use Tianluo Prison again for a long time. He would destroy the world of Tianluo Prison. The destructive power of the world was naturally the black-clothed old man's strongest killing move. Boom, boom, boom. The space stabilized, just to make it easier to use Tianluo Prison's destruction. At this time, Tianyang was also completely prepared. The power of the heaven realm completely dissipated. This was because all of it had been condensed into the strongest version of the heavenly sword within 100,000 miles of sword light. World destroy! Sky sword, sky sword! Tianyang roared and slashed out with the great void sword embryo. The sword light of 100,000 miles cut space and time again. The power of the origin of time and space was exploding, and the surrounding space and time became chaotic. However, the destruction of Tianluo Prison itself was incomparably chaotic. Yang Tian, you will die today without a doubt. In order to destroy Tianluo Prison, the black-clothed old man did not even maintain his pieced-together state. His body could no longer be stabilized under this terrible pressure and directly collapsed. Blood spurted wildly, but the black-clothed old man did not care at all. The one who will die is you. Boom. In order to maximize the attack power and ensure the opponent's death, Tianyang and the black-clothed old man did not intend to use their strongest killing move to deal with the opponent's strongest killing move. Instead, they directly ignored the terrible attack that was about to come. They passed it and went to kill him. The sword light of 100,000 miles bloomed with chaotic colors. In the darkness of Tianluo Prison, it seemed to tear the sky and released endless light. And the hell-blood heavenly annihilation descended on Tianyang's body with the darkness of destruction. Boom! Tianyang's pupils contracted, and the vital essence in his body burst out crazily. The immortal fire burned to the limit. Even so, it could not stop the destructive power of Tianluo Prison, and began to collapse crazily. However, he still used all his strength to let the sword light of 100,000 miles slash on the black-clothed old man's body. Boom! The sword light bombarded the black-clothed old man's body. And the black-clothed old man was also at this moment. He was shattered by the released sword power. His body, along with his soul, shattered together. But you will also die. Boom! The black-clothed old man roared crazily. This was mutual destruction. Tianyang's body was also shattered. Chapter 1654. Boom! Tianyang's body was also in tatters at this moment. His flesh, blood, and bones were all destroyed by the terrifying destructive power of the heavenly prison. Even with Tianyang's current strength, he could not stop the black-clothed elder's final counterattack. As the black-clothed elder had said, this was a mutual destruction. However, the black-clothed elder obviously did not know. Although they had perished together, it was only Tianyang's life that had perished together with him. Boom! The immortal flame, which had been ignited long ago, burned instantly. In the pitch-black flame, a little light flashed rapidly. The destructive power of the heavenly prison lasted for less than half a minute. After the black-clothed elder died, it completely calmed down. And the spirit protected by the Tsang Emperor sword could finally activate the immortal bloodline to reconstruct his body. However, this God Realm late stage is really powerful. Tianyang sighed as he looked at the black-robed old man's corpse, whose body and spirit had been completely destroyed by Tianyang's sword. He couldn't be any more dead. If not for the Tsang Emperor's sword fragment protecting Tianyang's spirit, Tianyang might not have survived even if he had the immortal divine body. Tianyang was still unable to cultivate the last level of the immortal divine body, the immortal soul. If he succeeded, even his spirit could be immortal, just like being reborn from a drop of blood. Tianyang would not have to rely on the immortal soul, which he did not know if it could withstand. But in the end, in this battle Tianyang had won. Although he burned his martial soul, he could not use the heaven-devouring secret skill again until he recovered to a certain extent. Although he used the Tsang Emperor sword to protect his spirit, he was still seriously injured. It was a Pyrrhic victory. After all, the black-clothed elder was not Venerable Qing Gu, nor was he the fourth elder of the Tsangshuan demon sect, who could even defeat Gu Qing. Instead, he was a genuine and terrifying existence standing at the top of the pyramid in the Eastern Cloud Territory, or even the entire South-Central Hundred Territories. I was too rash. I should have stalled for time instead of going head-to-head with him. Tianyang's face was pale as he sighed. Although they had won the battle, the price they had paid for it was also enormous. Because the Hellblood Heavenly Net Annihilation was the destruction of a deity-level small world, the injury to Tianyang's divine soul could be said to be the greatest in history. It was comparable to when the Undying Prince arrived at the Xiantian Great World and almost killed Tianyang. Now Tianyang could not continue to use the power of the divine soul to kill the whole audience in seconds like he did in the Tianjiao tournament. The immortal bloodline had also consumed a great deal of power. Although the rebirth from a drop of blood divine ability would not be destroyed, the power of the bloodline had been greatly consumed. Just a little bit more and he would have injured his source. The most important thing was the consumption of the heavenly sword. Tianyang had never used this move against the Undying Prince, not even when he had faced the Undying Prince. It was equivalent to burning one's martial soul, but it wasn't completely done. Although Tianyang could be said to be able to recover, in reality, he still needed a long time. Tianyang could not use the sky-devouring secret skill that he had used against a deity because his martial soul had been refined to the extreme. It could be said that his cultivation would be stuck at the peak Holy King for a long time. The combat strength that he could unleash would be far weaker than before. However, I'm still alive. Tianyang clenched his fist. No matter what, he had won the battle against a deity. If he won, he would be able to keep his life. If he lost, he would be doomed eternally. Unfortunately, no one knew that the old man in black had appeared here and had been killed by Tianyang. Otherwise, Yang Tian's name would have appeared at the top of the True Dragon list. It's time to go back. Tianyang reached out and took the old man in black's space bag. Then, he took out some recovery pills from the Vientiane sky ruins and popped them into his mouth. Although it was a drop in the bucket, the Lotus Emperor's secret treasure was about to be opened. In the Windy City. As the aura of a deity suddenly exploded in the Windy City, the entire city fell into a dead silence for a long time. Even the city governor of the Windy City was only a half-deity. Suddenly, there was a battle in the advanced deity state in the Windy City. How could the city governor of the Windy City show himself? As a result, until Tianyang returned, the city governor of the Windy City did not dare to say anything. He hid in the city governor's mansion and did not even dare to release his primordial spirit to check on the situation. Seeing this, Tianyang was speechless. When the old man in black was around, he did not dare to come out. When he was not around, he still did not dare to come out. This was what a city governor should do. However, this was good. Tianyang did not want to expose himself too early. The Xiao family. In a flash, Tianyang locked onto Ling Yuhan's position and came to the Xiao family. Master! Ling Yuhan's expression changed drastically when he saw Tianyang's figure appear, but his face was unusually pale. He hurriedly said, Why are his injuries so serious? She had reached the holy emperor level, and could sense how serious Tianyang's injuries were. She knew that Tianyang had the immortal divine body. With the immortal divine body, as long as he did not die, he would be at his peak. But now Tianyang was not dead yet, but he was on the verge of death. Only when he was attacked by the immortal prince's power in the realm of the gods' passage would he have such terrible injuries. It's okay. The injuries that would have killed me have been suppressed. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled and said, "That man in black, what's going on?" At the side, Xiaoling could not help but ask. Although the old man in black had only appeared for a few seconds, Tianyang had lured him into the sky to fight. But in just a few seconds, the Windy City had been in shock and fear until now. Thinking that the Xiao family might have provoked such a powerful being, Xiaoling was worried. "I've already killed him. Don't worry." Tianyang forced a smile and said, "Killed." Hearing this, Xiaoling's eyes narrowed. "That's an immortal state. Ling shut up." At this time, the Xiao family elder suddenly appeared in front of Xiaoling and reprimanded her. Then, he looked at Tianyang and bowed deeply. "Thank you, master, for saving the Xiao family." Whether it was Lei Qianjue, the young man in black, the Jiang family elder, or the old man in black, every one of them had the terrifying strength to cause the Xiao family to suffer heavy losses, or even be destroyed. But Tianyang had made a move and forced them to retreat, and even killed them. God knows how many times he had saved the Xiao family. This kind of kindness, no matter how much they respected him, was not an exaggeration. Tianyang, on the other hand, chuckled and accepted the gift. "But there's still a problem," Tianyang said to himself and waved his hand. Although the old man in black's body had been reduced to pieces, there was still some blood. This blood was brought over by Tianyang. "The young man in black is not dead yet. I still have some things to ask him." End of chapter. Chapter 1655. At the border of the Eastern Cloud Territory. In a magnificent mansion. Why hasn't grandfather returned after such a long time? The young man in black was puzzled as he calculated the time it would take for the old man in black to return. Given his grandfather's terrifying strength, it shouldn't take much time to deal with a mere Yang Tian. He could kill him instantly as soon as he appeared. However, at the thought of Yang Tian, the black-clothed young man's face was filled with rage. Why does Miss Jiang Xian value a country bumpkin from the Cloud Fire territory so highly? It's already an honor to have a branch of the Jiang family in such a desolate place like the Cloud Fire territory. If Miss Jiang Xian can go to the Cloud Fire territory, it will bring honor to our ancestors and be remembered by the Cloud Fire territory for thousands of years. In the end, a guy from the Cloud Fire territory is valued so highly by Miss Jiang Xian that she even wants to give him the rare key to Emperor Qing's secret treasure. The young man in black roared as he held the ball of green light tightly in his hand. Emperor Qing's secret treasure contained so many opportunities that it couldn't be completely excavated even if it was opened thousands of times. Right now, only a very small number of people could enter, and these people were at most demigod cultivation bases. Once a godly state expert entered, he would be forcefully expelled at least. At worst, he might even be killed in the secret treasure. After all, he was an Archean existence like the ancestor of the Jiang family. Under such circumstances, the selected demigods naturally had to be selected to the extreme. However, Miss Jiang Xian didn't choose from so many powerful demigods in the Jiang family, but she chose a filthy ant who was only at the peak of the Holy Emperor realm. Blue veins popped out on the young man's fists because he used too much strength. To him, this matter was simply a great humiliation. His strength wasn't the best among the subordinates of the Jiang family, but he was in the top 3 among the subordinates of the Jiang family who were loyal to Jiang Xian. Among the demigods, he was one of the best. As a result, most of the keys that Jiang Xian distributed to Emperor Qing's secret treasure were given to Jiang Xian's trusted followers. Although the young man in black was not convinced, he had to admit it. However, the last one was a piece of trash from the Cloudfire territory who was only a peak Saint King? The black-shirt young man was completely enraged. Even though it was kept by his grandfather, the young man in black still had a feeling when he held it in his hand. His key was stolen. The true master was still that ant from the Cloudfire territory who was only a peak Saint King. I never thought that I would discover that bastard Yang Tian just because I was unhappy and went to interrupt the return of a small Saint Emperor clan. This time, my condition wasn't good and I was defeated. But next time? No, there won't be a next time. The current him will die in the hands of grandfather. The black-clothed young man sneered. He had already planned this. When Jiang Xian instructed the black-clothed old man, she did not give an absolute order. She only said that she would try her best to leave it to Yang Tian. They could say that they had never seen Yang Tian before, so they gave it to him. The black-clothed old man had protected Jiang Xian for many years, and would probably give her some face. As for Yang Tian, he could still use various methods to appear in front of Miss Jiang Xian. Hence, to ensure that nothing went wrong, they just had to kill Yang Tian. However, for some reason, the black-clothed old man had not returned. Is it too far away? The black-clothed young man was puzzled. In the Xiao family. Looking at the drop of blood that Tianyang took out, Xiao Ling was still in a daze. However, the expression of the Xiao family's old man changed. Then, he knelt on the ground. Xiao Tingxian of the Xiao family thanks you for your kindness. From now on, if you have any orders for the Xiao family will do anything for you. The Xiao family's old man said loudly as he knelt on the ground with his head lowered. Grandpa, what are you doing? Seeing this, Xiao Ling's expression changed. She wanted to pull the Xiao family's old man up, but the Xiao family's old man used his ethereal force to push Xiao Ling away. You bastard, what did you do to my grandpa? Seeing this, Xiao Ling's expression changed. She raised her head and glared at Tianyang. Hearing this, Tianyang did not speak. Instead, it was the Xiao family's old man who spoke. Sir, you have helped us kill Lei Qianjue and defeated the black-clothed young man. At the same time, you have forced the Jiang family's immortal state warrior to fulfill his promise and even killed the immortal state warrior. To our Xiao family, this is already a great kindness. Hearing this, Xiao Ling nodded, but her face was still filled with confusion. Didn't they already thank him before? However, now that Lei Qianjue and the black-clothed old man are dead, the Jiang family's immortal state warrior will not do anything to the Xiao family. However, the black-clothed young man is still a threat. Now, Sir is using the black-clothed old man's blood to locate the black-clothed young man. He wants to get rid of the Xiao family so that there will be no future trouble. How can I not kneel when you have done me such a great favor? The Xiao family's old man said. Hearing this, Xiao Ling was moved. Who would have thought that this fellow would be so frivolous as to not care about anything at all, not even the Xiao clan? Behind their backs, he was so considerate of the Xiao family. Tianyang did not say a word and continued to use the blood to locate the black-clothed young man. If not for the good relationship between Ling Yuhan and Xiao Ling, he would not have been so considerate. Also, this karma was caused by Tianyang. Naturally, she wanted Tianyang to end it. At this time, the ethereal force in Tianyang's body began to circulate. The drop of blood that was drawn out also released rays of light. Not good. At this time, Tianyang's pupils shrank. Using the blood to locate the black-clothed young man was not difficult. However, it consumed a lot of spiritual energy. The current Tianyang might not be able to withstand it. Can't you just let me do this? At this time, a golden figure appeared beside Tianyang. Compared to before, her figure had grown a little. Without hesitation, she snatched the drop of blood and circulated her boundless energy. The recent thickening of her bloodline was revealed. You have finished devouring? Looking at the boundless Holy Spirit who had appeared to help, Tianyang smiled awkwardly. He had been too stubborn. I have finished it long ago, the boundless Holy Spirit said. Now, the boundless Holy Spirit had become more complete after devouring the third boundless Holy Hall. She did not look like an 11 or 12-year-old girl, but a 16-year-old girl. In her complete form, she was about the same age as Tianyang and Lingyuan. Locked on. At this time, the boundless Holy Spirit spoke and quickly solved the problem. That's good. Tianyang smiled and patted the black muscular man beside him. Gu Qing, don't kill him. End of chapter. Chapter 1656. A silver light flashed. An incomparably thick pitch-black hand directly tore open this small spatial crack by force. He had forcefully pulled the spatial crack to a point where even Gu Qing's massive body could pass through. Bang! Bang! A huge weight smashed onto the ground. The mansion that the young man in black had spent a lot of spiritual stones to buy was pushed to the limit and collapsed. Under the sunlight, the pitch-black figure with his back facing the light spoke slowly. You are the person that Master is looking for? At that instant, the aura of the God realm burst out from Gu Qing's body. The black-clothed young man trembled like a sieve at this moment. While Gu Qing was tracking the location of the old man in black's blood and chasing after the young man in black, Tianyang did not stay idle. He asked the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit to help him break the space bag of the old man in black and began to search it carefully. He had only obtained a godly state space bag from Venerable Qing Gu. Deng Zhangquan was just a clone back then, so there was nothing in his space bag. The resources in Venerable Qing Gu's interspatial bag had already reached a level that shocked Tianyang. The black-clothed old man's strength was a full level higher than Venerable Qing Gu's. The things in his space bag were naturally extraordinary. As expected, there are a lot of divine weapons and divine skills. There are as many as I want. Tianyang searched for a while and was immediately shocked by the scene in the space bag. Compared to the space bag of the old man in black. After the Prodigy Grand Competition, the thousands of semi-divine weapons that the Lingfeng realm representative took out were simply trash in front of the old man in black's inventory. The number was still in the thousands, but the names behind them had changed from semi-divine weapons to genuine divine weapons. It seems like the Lingfeng realm master is not as powerful as an emperor, but he is enough to deter all the forces in Lingfeng realm. Even Haoman in the past had to be wary of him. The Lingfeng realm master should be in the same realm as the old man in black, but his cultivation is much more powerful. Tianyang muttered to himself. Previously, he had no idea about the division of the divine realm and the specific level of strength. Even though he had dealt with divine realm experts many times, he was still not clear about it. Now, through the two God-state interspatial bags that he had seized, he had a better understanding of the situation. However, are these all the treasures of a God realm late-stage expert? It did not take long for Tianyang to check all of the black-clothed old man's interspatial bags. There were many divine artifacts and cultivation techniques, which were worthy of the black-clothed old man's cultivation. However, other than that, there was almost nothing else. It gave Tianyang a very strange feeling. However, although these God-state cultivation techniques are useless to me, I can still use them as a reference. Tianyang smiled and kept the interspatial bags. He was born with terminated meridians and cultivated the self-created divine desolate heavenly spiritual skill. Ordinary cultivation techniques were of little value to him. They were tasteless, but it was a pity to throw them away. However, just like how Tianyang had just been reborn, in order to adapt to the new body with completely terminated meridians, these God-state cultivation techniques were of some reference value to Tianyang. After all, Tianyang's martial Dao was a supreme martial Dao that integrated thousands of martial arts to forge his own supreme martial Dao. However, Gu Qing's progress is almost there. After counting all the spoils, Tianyang sensed the situation on Gu Qing's side. The black-clothed young man had a God Realm late-stage grandfather, so he might have some powerful trump cards. If these trump cards were to be used, Gu Qing, who still did not know how to use the divine power left by Venerable Qing Gu, would be defeated. However, it seemed that he did not have the confidence to fight with a God Realm expert. Tianyang sensed that the black-clothed young man did not even put up a fight before he was beaten half to death by Gu Qing. Then Gu Qing sealed all of his true essence and brought him back. Perhaps it was because Tianyang had ordered not to kill the black-clothed young man, but even though the black-clothed young man raised his hands in surrender, Gu Qing still beat him up. When Gu Qing returned, it was already late at night. However, the entire Shao family was still brightly lit. It was not that they did not want to sleep, but they did not dare to sleep when a big Buddha was not resting. Looking at Tianyang, who was cultivating with his eyes closed in the Shao family's courtyard, some of the younger generation of the Shao family could not believe their eyes. This was the person who had killed Lei Qianjue and defeated a demigod. Even the Jiang family's divine state expert, who had been eating and drinking well in the Shao family but did not intend to fulfill his promise, was forced by this person. However, whether it was his appearance or his senses, this person seemed to be about the same age as them. In fact, he might even be younger. Xiao Ling was also in the midst of everyone's disbelief. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, she would have found it hard to believe that an ordinary-looking young man could accomplish such a feat. Although Ling Yuhan was the one who killed Lei Qianjue, with the relationship between Tianyang and Ling Yuhan and their strength, it did not make a difference who did it. That guy is indeed not from here. Hero Yuhan, you're going to leave with this guy. Xiao Ling sighed as she looked at Ling Yuhan, who was standing beside Tianyang and only had her eyes on Tianyang. She felt a little disappointed. At this moment, a silver light appeared beside Tianyang. Following that, a gigantic hand reached out from within and tore open a crack in the void in an incomparably tyrannical manner. Then, it walked out from within. However, this time it was with one hand. You're back. Tianyang chuckled as he looked at Gu Qing, who had opened a crack in space with one hand and carried the unconscious black-clothed young man with the other. Mission accomplished, Gu Qing said in a low, muffled voice. He did not grow much after this solo mission. However, Tianyang wasn't proficient in refining Emperor Corp's puppets to begin with. Even though he couldn't refine one as recorded in the records, it was still a powerful Emperor Corp's puppet that could overturn the heavens and overturn the earth, burning mountains and boiling oceans. Then, Gu Qing threw Gu Qing to the ground and stood beside Tianyang like a statue, acting like a loyal guard. Seeing this, the entire Shao family held their breath. The aura that he just displayed was that of a godly state elite. That black-clothed, muscular man was a terrifying existence that even the city lord could only tremble in fear in front of. How could such a person be the young man's guard? Tianyang looked thoughtfully at the shocked disciples of the Shao clan. He understood the intentions of the Shao clan's old man and smiled. You guys can do it too. Then, in a flash, he brought the black-clothed young man to the Vientiane Sky Market. Chapter 1657. The old man from the Shao clan didn't allow so many people to rest and instead surrounded him. His intentions were obvious. It was nothing more than showing off his strength to encourage the Shao clan disciples to become stronger. Tianyang could do it with just a few words. It wasn't a bad idea to go with the flow and form good karma. However, it was hard to say how effective it would be. In the Vientiane Sky ruins, as an existence that could almost replace a space bag, the Vientiane Sky ruins wasn't Tianyang's own small world, but it wasn't much different from his own. There were two important characteristics of the godly realm. One was to comprehend the godly Tao law and establish one's own godly Tao origin source. The other was to establish one's own small world. The black-clothed old man had used the method of establishing his own small world to force Tianyang into a desperate situation. If he hadn't been overconfident in his own strength and let down his guard against Tianyang, the outcome would have been uncertain. In the heavenly net prison, one's 5 senses were deprived and could only sense darkness. Even one's spirit was restricted to an incomparably terrifying state. If it had been anyone else, they would have been crushed by the heaven and earth millstone long ago. Even Tianyang's 5 senses had been weakened by more than half, leaving him with only his vision. If this Vientiane sky ruins became Tianyang's own small world, what kind of remarkable abilities would it have? With that thought in mind, the young man in black that Tianyang had been holding in his hand like a chick slowly regained consciousness. Where is this? The black-clothed young man looked blankly at the green mountains and clear waters around him, as well as the heaven and earth spirit chi that was much weaker than the godly realm. There shouldn't be a place like this at the edge of the eastern cloud territory, right? Then, the black-clothed young man felt a sharp pain in his head and recalled the last memory he had before he lost consciousness. A godly realm brawny man who was completely black and spoke stiffly suddenly appeared in front of him. It looked like he was about to fight. Although the black-clothed young man didn't know the background and purpose of this brawny man, he was still quite decisive at that time. He immediately realized that it was absolutely impossible for him to defeat a divine realm expert, so he begged for mercy on the spot to stall for time. He wanted to wait until the old man in black came back and kill this arrogant, strong man with one move. However, he didn't expect that even though he had already knelt down and begged for mercy, the black-clothed man still attacked him without any explanation. Not long after, the black-clothed young man fell into a coma. When he woke up again, he was already in this unknown place. "You're awake." At this moment, a slightly familiar voice sounded. The black-clothed young man raised his head in confusion and immediately saw a face filled with hatred. Yang! Heavens! Looking at the face that seemed to be carved into the bones, the black-clothed young man's pupils suddenly shrank as he roared angrily, one word at a time. "You're not dead?" As he spoke, the black-clothed young man was also in disbelief. His grandfather was a late-stage deity realm powerhouse. Such an existence making a move actually still let Yang Tian escape? Could it be that Yang Tian had some kind of life-saving trump card? So that black brute from before was one of your men. The black-clothed young man suddenly understood and said coldly, "I advise you to let me go immediately. Otherwise, when my grandfather finds out, even if you escape out of the realm of the gods, you'll be caught and you'll beg for death." Thinking about how the black brute didn't give him any face at all and directly beat him up, the black-clothed young man was instantly filled with hatred. "Oh, I understand." Hearing this, Tianyang nodded. "This guy hasn't woken up yet, Gu Qing. Here. Beat him up." Yes. What followed was an inhumane loud bang. The black-clothed young man, who still didn't understand the situation until now, was taught a lesson directly and decisively just like that. It was because of this person that Tianyang had no choice but to fight fiercely with the black-clothed old man and even almost lost his life. It would be strange if Tianyang's attitude towards the black-clothed young man was good. However, even so, the black-clothed young man's vitality and willpower were still abnormally high. After being punched by Gu Qing for a minute, he was still bragging about his grandfather's awesomeness. However, after a few minutes, this guy stopped talking. If Tianyang didn't stop in time, this guy's soul would have been beaten out of his body. "Don't. I'll talk. I'll talk. Your key to the Qing Emperor's secret treasure. I'll give it all to you. Don't hit me again," the black-clothed young man said intermittently, almost as if he was about to die. The black-clothed old man hadn't come yet and he didn't know if he would come later. However, if Gu Qing continued to beat him up, he would die. A wise man submits to circumstances. No matter how strong his grandfather was, he was now at the mercy of others. My key to the Qing Emperor's secret treasure? Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. What was it? Wasn't his key to the Qing Emperor's secret treasure, the Green Lotus Palace token, still in his hands? How did this black-clothed young man have another one? Miss Jiang Xian gave you a key, but my grandfather kept it. That's why my grandfather wants to kill you so badly. Otherwise, if you appear in front of Miss Jiang Xian, my future will be ruined, the black-clothed young man said. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. So this was the reason why the black-clothed old man and the black-clothed young man wanted to deal with him? Well, the reason for their previous attack was unclear. Tianyang had killed the black-clothed old man, so he didn't know why the black-clothed old man wanted to attack him. The Qing Emperor's secret treasure was indeed very tempting. For the opportunity to become a god, Tianyang wouldn't be surprised at what the black-clothed young man would do. Of course, if he provoked him, he would kill him without hesitation. What else do you know? Tell me everything. I promise I won't kill you, Tianyang said. Hearing this, the black-clothed young man nodded frantically, afraid that Tianyang would attack him again. Then, he spilled out everything that he knew. If the black-clothed old man knew, what would he think? And Tianyang also understood the reason. After taking back the Qing Emperor's secret treasure that belonged to him from the black-clothed young man, Tianyang strengthened the seal on the black-clothed young man and threw him to the same place as Shui Tianyang. After all, Tianyang said he wouldn't kill him, but it didn't mean he would let him go and leave a scourge behind. Coincidentally, Tianyang had the Green Lotus Palace token, which was much more advanced than the ordinary key to the Qing Emperor's secret treasure. Together with the key to the Qing Emperor's secret treasure, Ling Yuhan and Gu Qing should be able to enter. It was more or less a fruitful trip. Tianyang smiled and went out to recover. There was less than half a month left before the opening of the Qing Emperor's secret treasure. In this half a month, Tianyang naturally had to recover well. The black-clothed young man and Shui Tianyang were left staring at each other, sensing each other's aura. Chapter 1658. Azure Cloud Mountain Range. In the primordial era, this place was still a huge ocean where the Azure Lotus Palace was located. However, after countless years of erosion, the original ocean had turned into a mountain range. Moreover, a battle between experts could also change the world. The terrain of the deity world had changed many times due to countless battles between experts. The biggest change was during the primordial era. The great divine demon war had shattered an entire continent and turned it into thousands of worlds. The deity world was only the largest fragment. Thousands of years ago, the Jiang family of the Archean era had found the remains of the Azure Lotus Palace in the mountain range and named it Azure Cloud Mountain Range. Unfortunately, the Jiang family of the Archean era was unable to monopolize and open the Azure Lotus Palace alone. They could only ask the three major forces to work together. After many years, they finally opened a narrow entrance that could be opened periodically and allowed those below the deity state to enter. At this moment, the Azure Cloud Mountain Range was bustling with activity. The three sovereigns of the South Central 100 territories who were below the deity state were escorted along the way. Their strength had surpassed the ordinary deity state. There were also countless ordinary itinerant cultivators who were watching from the sidelines, wanting to get a share of the loot. The entire Azure Cloud Mountain Range was filled. This should be the treasure of the Jiang family. Now we have to share it with the other two major forces. This is so unpleasant. The three major forces were clearly separated from each other. A young man from the Jiang family said unhappily as he looked at the snow god's bloodline, who was dressed in snow white and looked like an immortal, and Dragon Hall, who had taken over a large territory. He exuded the aura of a peak demigod. Shut up, Jiang Xian said lightly as she looked at the snow god's bloodline and Dragon Hall with some fear in her eyes. Although these two forces had not directly clashed with Jiang Xian yet, they would definitely clash in the future. The South Central 100 territories was only so big, but there were three emperor-level forces. Without a doubt, there would definitely be a clash. However, for Jiang Xian, The most important thing was to defeat her eldest and second brothers and secure her position as the successor of the Jiang family. She could ignore Dragon Hall and the Snow God's bloodline for the time being. Humph, you're just a woman who was lucky to get some talent to come to Emperor Qing's secret treasure. I'm young master's subordinate. How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? However, Jiang Xian's words did not shut the young man up. Instead, he sneered disdainfully. This time, the Jiang family had not only sent Jiang Xian. How could the child and the other competitors for the position of heir let Jiang Xian occupy the entire secret chamber of Emperor Qing alone? Naturally, they would plant someone to interfere with Jiang Xian. However, Jiang Xian did not expect him to be so direct. The people of the Jiang family are really interesting. Not only are they fighting internally, but they are also fighting outside. Seeing this, the leader of the Snow God's faction immediately laughed mockingly. Jiang Xian's face darkened when she heard that, but there was nothing she could do. Even if they were already enemies, they couldn't afford to lose all pretense of cordiality with the young master's bloodline. It was also because of this that the young man from the eldest young master's faction was so arrogant, as if he was afraid that Jiang Xian wouldn't attack him. Jiang Xian was helpless. Then, she looked around and frowned. Why isn't he back yet after sending him to deliver the key to Yang Tian? Didn't he say that he could give up if he didn't want to? Jiang Xian frowned. The old man in black was at the advanced stage of the God state. If he was here, the people from the Snow God's faction would not dare to be so arrogant. The advanced stage of the God state was the top in this place. Well, the secret chamber of Emperor Qing is a stage for demigods after all. The people from the Snow God's faction will be dealt with later, Jiang Xian said lightly. At this moment, Jiang Xian suddenly raised her eyebrows and looked a little surprised. The powerful sensing power that she had shown at Vast Sky Sacred Mountain fluctuated slightly at this moment. Yang Tian? He's here? Whoosh! In the next moment, a figure came to the edge of Mount Qingyun. But why do I feel a little weak? Jiang Xian was stunned, but she still flew over. No matter what, she had seen Tianyang's mysteriousness. His appearance at this moment was undoubtedly a great help to her. However, before Jiang Xian could reach Tianyang, a golden figure swept past her and came to Tianyang. Ha! I didn't expect you to come to the realm of the gods so soon, Tianyang. The golden figure laughed and said, with the level of heaven and earth spiritual energy in the black sky great world, I thought I would have to wait another 3 to 5 years. Then, I would be able to destroy you. Streams of demigod dragon aura were released. Jiang Xian was stunned. This was someone from the Dragon Hall? Since when did Yang Tian have a relationship with the Dragon Hall? Tianyang looked at the golden-haired young man who suddenly appeared in front of him and greeted him. He was stunned. After looking at him carefully, he suddenly recalled. Little Dragon God? Back then, Tianyang had suddenly appeared in the True Dragon sacred domain and caused a huge ruckus there. Tianyang still remembered this person from the realm of the gods clearly. Little Dragon God chuckled. Then, his demigod dragon power surged out. Although I don't know why you came to Emperor Qing's secret treasure, first let's fight. Back in the black sky great world, I was so aggrieved. Then, Little Dragon God prepared to attack. He unleashed the terrifying physical strength that even Tianyang found difficult to deal with back then. However, in the next moment there was a sharp, cold laugh. Long Zhu, this is the guy you know? Peak Holy Emperor? Then, a golden-haired young man appeared beside Little Dragon God. With your torch dragon bloodline, you know these shady people? Aren't you afraid that they have ulterior motives and steal your torch dragon bloodline? The golden-haired young man sneered at Little Dragon God. Little Dragon God was stunned when he heard this. Then, his face suddenly sank. Long Gu, I don't need you to interfere in my affairs. You are the only successor of the Torch Dragon bloodline in the Dragon Hall. How can you associate with ordinary people? Moreover, whether this guy is qualified to enter Emperor Qing's secret treasure is still a problem. The golden-haired young man, Long Gu, said disdainfully. He looked at Tianyang and curled his lips into a disdainful smile. Maybe he's here to try his luck like those third-rate forces or even rogue cultivators. You! Boom! Little dragon god flew into a rage when he heard this. He suddenly slammed his right fist down, and a loud explosion resounded as numerous cracks spread out in the space around him. He glared at the golden-haired young man. Meanwhile, the golden-haired young man's gaze fell on Tianyang. The corners of his lips curled up even more. Don't you think so? Peak Holy Emperor? End of chapter. Chapter 1659. Don't you think so? Pinnacle Holy Emperor? Long Gu said with a mocking grin. Wisps of powerful bloodline auras burst out from his body. It was as if a terrifying gigantic dragon had formed behind the Dragon Valley with its fangs bared and claws brandished, and it roared furiously at the heavenly sun. By the side, even those who did not possess the dragon tribe's bloodline had a slight change in expression. They felt a little breathless. Even if they were not of the same species, when the power of the bloodline reached its peak, it could suppress other beings without the power of the bloodline. Although Long Gu's bloodline was not a primordial bloodline, it was still one of the top bloodlines of the dragon tribe, the ancient dragon bloodline. Such a bloodline had the most powerful bloodline aura on humans. Ordinary cultivators would be greatly weakened in the face of such a bloodline aura. Now, Long Gu was at the pinnacle of the demigod realm, while Tianyang was only at the pinnacle of the Holy Emperor realm. In Long Gu's opinion, Tianyang should be unable to take it and kneel on the ground, begging for mercy. However, Tianyang was calm and still standing in front of Long Gu. He even looked a little confused. Are you putting on a monkey show? What? Seeing this, Long Gu's pupils shrank as he stared in disbelief at Tianyang, who was acting as if nothing had happened. How can you be so calm under the pressure of my ancient dragon bloodline? The Dragon Valley had used this tactic countless times, and it had humiliated tens of thousands of human cultivators. Why was it useless in front of such a weak human being? If there's nothing else, get lost. Tianyang smiled and said. Then, he took a step forward and walked toward Little Dragon God. A terrifying aura was released from Tianyang's body. Long Gu's expression changed and he wanted to block it, but he was still forced back a step. The mocking expression on his face was instantly replaced by disbelief. What had appeared on this human's body to force him back? It seemed to be bloodline aura? Impossible! It must be an illusion. Long Gu roared in his heart, but he did not attack from behind because of Little Dragon God. On the other hand, Tianyang's expression remained unchanged as he looked at the Little Dragon God in surprise. If I recall correctly, you were only a great sage back in the great arcane cosmos. How did he become a demigod so quickly? Tianyang was still a peak saint emperor right now. When he had fought with Little Dragon God, their strength had been about the same. But Little Dragon God had already broken through to the demigod realm? Tianyang was still a saint emperor even after devouring so many fortuitous encounters. Compared to the Little Dragon God, he was truly lacking in comparison. After I returned to the God realm, I received the bloodline baptism of the Dragon Palace and awakened the Torch Dragon bloodline in me. That's why I immediately broke through to the Saint Emperor realm and then became a demigod. Little Dragon God chuckled and said, however, now is not the time to fight. This Dragon Valley is stupid and annoying. Let's wait until we enter the Azure Thearka's secret treasure. Speaking of which, where is the tyrant dragon god? Tianyang glanced in the direction of the Dragon Palace and asked doubtfully. The tyrant dragon god is just an ordinary immortal. Although he has lived for a long time, he is still some distance away from reaching the mid-stage of the immortal state. He is not qualified to enter the Azure Thearka's secret treasure. However, if you wish to see him, You can come to the Dragon Palace after we're done with the Azure Thearka's secret treasure. Little Dragon God laughed. Tianyang was a little emotional when he heard that. The tyrant dragon god was the ancestor of the dragon tribe in the great arcane cosmos, and had a high status. In the god realm, he was just an ordinary cultivator. Although he was in the Dragon Palace, his status was not necessarily high. Ascending to the god realm was not necessarily a good thing. Thinking back, it was in the ancestral land of the dragon gods that he obtained the immortal divine body from the tyrant dragon god and learned about the existence of the immortal state. It could be said that the tyrant dragon god played an important role in Tianyang's martial path. Now, it seemed that the treatment of the tyrant dragon god was not as good as Tianyang had imagined. This made Tianyang feel a little emotional. I'm leaving first. See you in the Azure Thearka's secret treasure. Little Dragon God laughed when he sensed that more and more attention was being drawn to him. Since he could not fight, he returned to the Dragon Palace in a flash. Long Gu glanced coldly at Tianyang and also returned to the Dragon Palace. Anyway, his purpose this time was to mock Tianyang and take the opportunity to mock Long Zhu, who had suddenly become strong because of his bloodline. Although he had not fully achieved it, he remembered this guy called Tianyang. If this person could really enter the Azure Thearka's secret treasure, Long Gu would not mind attacking Tianyang. As for Tianyang, he shrugged as he watched the two of them leave. He felt that it was alright to meet someone he was familiar with. Then, Tianyang tilted his head and looked at Jiang Xian. What do you want? Although Jiang Xian did not mean any harm and could even be said to be kind, Tianyang had almost died in the hands of the black-robed old man because of this kindness. Of course, Tianyang was not so cheap as to vent his anger on Jiang Xian. However, he could not help but feel a little depressed. How do you know someone from the Dragon Palace? Jiang Xian asked in surprise. Jiang Xian did not take Tianyang, whom Little Dragon God had mentioned earlier, to heart. Who did not have a few fake names in the martial world. As long as the person was real, the name was just a code name. Most importantly, Yang Tian was a person from the Cloud Fire territory. It was already a coincidence that he had met someone from the ancient Jiang family. How could he have met someone from the Divine Hall? We fought before. Tianyang quickly adjusted his state of mind and smiled. This is the key to Emperor Qing's secret treasure. Thank you. Although he already had the token of the Green Lotus Palace, which was far more powerful than the key to the gate of the Green Lotus Palace, Jiang Xian had given him the key. This was a good friendship. Okay. Jiang Xian nodded. She did not know why, but she felt a little estranged in her heart. She could not explain why. In fact, I don't want you to always follow us and fight for the Jiang family. As long as the Jiang family needs help, it will be enough if you can help. Jiang Xian said. She had an extraordinary physique, and could see the potential of a person, or rather, what he was hiding. However, Tianyang was the only existence that she could not see through his potential, nor could she see through his hidden abilities. This kind of person could never be on bad terms with. Okay. Tianyang nodded. This was his original plan. However, this is one of the heirs of the Jiang family? Ha 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 ha. At this moment, a sharp voice rang out. A young man walked out from the side of the Jiang family and laughed wildly. You ignored the mockery of the snow goddess lineage, and now you've come to curry favor with a peak saint king that even the Dragon Hall despises? This is too funny. Ha 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 ha. End of chapter. Chapter 1660. You don't even dare to care about the mockery of the Goddess of Snow's faction, and now you're trying to curry favor with this peak holy emperor that even the Dragon Hall despises? Our Miss Jiang Xian is really smart. A mocking voice that was even more undisguised than Long Gu's voice rang out. Jiang Xian's face darkened when she heard that. She looked at the young man from the Jiang family and said in a deep voice, Jiang Ling, this is my personal matter. What does it have to do with you? Your personal matter is outside of the Jiang family. especially in the Azure Cloud Mountains where Emperor Qing's secret treasure is located. As one of the candidates for the successor of the Jiang family, your actions are no longer your personal matter. However, if you can treat a mere peak holy emperor like this, it seems that your status as a candidate for the successor of the Jiang family is not as good as it seems. The young man named Jiang Ling mocked coldly. Jiang Xian's face darkened when she heard that. It seems that I have to tell the elders in the family that Jiang Xian is really not good at judging people. Jiang Ling laughed wantonly. Jiang Xian's face changed when she heard that. The elders in the family favored males over females, and they kept adding obstacles to her, who was the only female candidate for the successor of the Jiang family in recent years. If not for Jiang Xian's outstanding talent, she would have been excluded from the list of candidates for the successor of the Jiang family a long time ago. However, although Jiang Xian's talent was extraordinary and she had shocked everyone, there were still many elders who wanted to deal with her at all times. If the elders had another weakness that could be used against her, it would undoubtedly be much more difficult for Jiang Xian to inherit the Jiang family. Tianyang rubbed his nose when he heard Jiang Ling's unrestrained mockery. Why did he feel like a punching bag? Previously, Long Gu had belittled him because he wanted to mock the little dragon god. Now, Jiang Ling was mocking him because he wanted to deal with Jiang Xian. So, from the very beginning, no one had taken him seriously. It seems that you gave one of the keys to Emperor Qing's secret treasure to this peak holy emperor. Seeing that Jiang Xian was angry but did not dare to say anything, Jiang Ling smiled proudly and walked toward Tianyang. He stretched out his hand and looked at Tianyang with disdain. Hand it over. Huh! Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Can't you understand my words? Seeing that Tianyang had no reaction, Jiang Ling's face instantly darkened. He angrily rebuked, hand over the key to the Azure Thearka's secret treasure. Jiang Ling, don't go too far. When she saw this, Jiang Xian was finally unable to restrain herself and spoke furiously. Shut up! You, young master! Jiang Ling snorted coldly. Then, he glared at Tianyang angrily, hand it over. Following this, a ferocious peak half-martial god realm aura burst out from Jiang Ling's body. Everyone was shocked when they sensed the aura. The people from Dragon Hall and God Snow's faction looked serious. Although the Jiang family had been keeping a low profile recently, they were not weak. However, Long Gu was gloating over Jiang Ling's misfortune. He did not teach this peak holy emperor a lesson. Did he really think that no one dared to provoke him? Now, he had finally kicked the iron plate. With the Jiang family's key to Emperor Qing's secret treasure, Jiang Ling could only take it even if he was beaten up by the Jiang family. How is your relationship with him? Tianyang turned his head and asked Jiang Xian. Not good, Jiang Xian said. She did not understand why Tianyang asked this. That's good. Tianyang smiled. Then, he looked at Jiang Ling, whose anger had reached its peak and who was about to attack in the next second. Boom! A slap landed on Jiang Ling's face. In an instant, Jiang Ling's face was deformed by Tianyang's terrifying physical strength. He was stunned on the spot. He was hit by a holy emperor? Tianyang smiled and took a step forward. However, this step was an upward step. Second step. Bang! With a soft sound, Tianyang's shoe landed perfectly on Jiang Ling's face. Ah! Jiang Ling reacted immediately and roared, I'm going to kill you! Then, the true origin of a peak demigod exploded and charged toward Tianyang. Violent mystic kill! The majestic true origin gathered on his fist. The power of the godly state's law wrapped around his arm. In an instant, his strength was raised to a terrifying level. However, Tianyang took another step forward and stomped on Jiang Ling's face. Boom! A huge force landed on Jiang Ling's face. Following this, Jiang Ling was stomped into the ground by the foot. He fell to the ground like a cannonball. What? Seeing this, Long Gu's pupils constricted. He looked at Tianyang in disbelief. This guy is so powerful? However, in the next moment, Long Gu laughed coldly. No matter how powerful he is, he can't be more powerful than the Jiang family. He took a small advantage with a sneak attack. Later, he will be the Jiang family's terrifying revenge. Ah! Jiang Ling, who was stomped down, roared angrily again. His true origin exploded and he charged forward again. He was a member of the Jiang family in the Archean dynasty and a demigod genius under the eldest young master. Yet, he was humiliated by someone who seemed to be close to Jiang Xian. It was a great humiliation. Only true idiots would go and offend the immemorial Jiang family for the sake of a moment of prestige. Long Gu shook his head and sneered disdainfully. At this moment, Jiang Ling had gathered his true origin. The Jiang family divine technique in his body was activated crazily. Surges of powerful energy were released. Heavenly divine attack. Jiang Ling roared angrily. Tianyang, on the other hand, raised his hand and his face darkened. Then, he activated his immortal divine body. Boom! The attack, which had merged with Jiang Ling's divine Tao law, had surpassed the limit of a peak demigod and was close to the divine realm. It landed on Tianyang's palm. However, Tianyang's palm was burning with immortal divine flames. He pushed out a terrifying giant palm. Immortal Taishian palm. Boom! The giant palm print, which was burning with black immortal divine flames, collided with Jiang Ling's heavenly divine attack. Jiang Ling spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward at a speed much faster than before. His face was filled with disbelief. He had actually been defeated? As for Tianyang, he looked at his body that wasn't too badly injured and smiled faintly. The immortal divine body was not only good at resurrection. However, Tianyang didn't realize that the instant he unleashed his undying divine flame. The leader of the God of Snow's faction and Long Gu trembled at the same time. A glaring light burst out from his eyes. End of chapter. Chapter 1661. The Great Mystery Immortal Palm. As one of the three styles of indestructible that Tianyang had learned from the statue of the immortal heavenly venerate in the ruins of God, Tianyang was very familiar with the terrifying attack that the immortal prince had used to crush Tianyang. However, Tianyang did not focus much on cultivating it. After all, other than the three styles of indestructible, Tianyang also had many other powerful moves. In addition, Tianyang had created the celestial realm, which required Tianyang to constantly train. As a result, his cultivation of the three styles of indestructible was slack. However, this did not mean that the three styles of indestructible were weak. On the contrary, even if Tianyang did not cultivate it, as Tianyang's immortal divine body and immortal bloodline improved, the power of the three styles of indestructible continued to increase. In the past half a month, Tianyang had deliberately cultivated the three styles of indestructible because his immortal bloodline had been damaged. Now, the power that had erupted. It was not much weaker than the 10,000 mammoth annihilation that had fused 5 or 6 origins. Boom! Jiang Ling's figure was directly sent flying by the great mystery immortal palm. However, Tianyang had no intention of letting him go. In this place, other than Little Dragon God and Jiang Xian, he did not know anyone else. Therefore, he had become a method that some people used to target Jiang Xian and Little Dragon God. Tianyang naturally did not want this to happen. So, he could only destroy one of them and establish his dominance. The original target of his dominance should have been Long Gu. However, he was patient and did not intend to attack Tianyang before he understood Tianyang's strength. Tianyang was still worrying about how to start the fight when Jiang Ling was sent to him. Naturally, he had to use the most decisive method to get rid of the other party. Poof, poof, poof. Even if the immortal divine flame's origin was damaged, it was still a first-rate divine flame. The true annihilation flames had already reached the threshold of a demigod flame, but it was still a little lacking compared to the undying divine flame. Even with Jiang Ling's peak demigod veritable essence energy, he would not be able to extinguish it in a short time. Instead, he was struck by the terrifying power of the undying great mystery palm and spat out a mouthful of blood. Immortal fire? At this moment, Jiang Ling glared at Tianyang with his eyes wide open. This is the undying divine flame of the undying imperial court? How did you get it? Undying imperial court. Unlike the cloud fire realm and the Lingfeng realm, which basically no one knew about, the immortal godfire was controlled by an emperor. The immemorial Jiang family naturally knew about the immortal godfire, which was much more powerful than the immemorial Jiang family. It could be said that if there were first-rate or second-rate forces in the divine world, the Jiang family would at most be at the peak of the second-rate forces. As for the undying imperial court, it was fully deserving of its title as a first-rate power. The undying divine flame was one of the symbols of the undying imperial court. Only the direct disciples of the undying imperial court could possess it. This ordinary-looking brat was actually someone from the undying imperial court? You want me to admit it? Tianyang raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect that this fellow would be able to recognize the origin of the undying divine flame after being struck by a palm. However, Tianyang's reaction wasn't slow either. He immediately sneered and said arrogantly. He displayed the demeanor of a disciple of the undying emperor court, a first-rate power in the divine world. Want. Hearing this, Jiang Ling was stunned. Then, his expression changed. If Jiang Ling admitted that he was really someone from the undying imperial court, the nature of the attack just now was completely different. Previously, he was only using the identity of a peak demigod from the immemorial Jiang family to attack a cultivator with no background. If he admitted it, he would be using the identity of a disciple of the immemorial Jiang family to attack a disciple of the undying imperial court. The nature of the attack was completely different. So, shut up. Seeing Jiang Ling's shocked expression, Tianyang smiled faintly and retracted the undying divine flame. However, Tianyang could feel that even though he had retracted his power, the gazes of the people around him were completely different. Shock, envy, jealousy, fear, and all sorts of emotions. However, Tianyang couldn't be bothered with what these people were thinking. He only needed to know that he had succeeded in establishing his dominant, undying imperial court. Jiang Xian looked at Tianyang with a complicated expression. No one knew what she was thinking. Previously, when she saw Tianyang's strength, Jiang Xian had already guessed it. Now, even though Tianyang didn't admit it, was there still a need to say whether it was true or not? Even the direct disciples of the undying imperial court might not be able to use the undying divine flame so skillfully. As for the people from the Snow Gods faction and Long Gu, they looked at Tianyang with a hint of fear. However, other than the undying divine flame, they also knew something else. For example, the undying emperor from the undying imperial court, the one who dominated the entire divine world. He was known as the undying emperor of the divine world. Once, he had issued a kill order to an unknown cultivator. I wonder if this guy is the undying prince. The corners of Long Gu's mouth curled up into a sneer. The undying imperial court's territory isn't that close to here. The undying imperial court and the Jiang family have nothing to do with each other. Long Gu sneered in his heart. In his heart, he gradually formed a plan. For example, he would make a move on Tianyang in the Azure Emperor's secret treasure. Assassin. Ever since Tianyang revealed the undying divine flame and revealed his identity as a disciple of the undying imperial court, the hostility towards Tianyang decreased a lot. Even Long Gu, who had a plan in mind, didn't make a move immediately. Instead, he looked at Tianyang quietly and continued to perfect the plan in his heart. It didn't matter if he was from the undying imperial court or not. In the 100 territories of the south, he actually provoked a local dragon, a member of the Dragon Palace? As long as Tianyang was dead, he, a disciple of the Dragon Palace, could casually say who killed him. In addition to the 3 major forces, other forces that were qualified to enter the Azure Emperor's secret treasure also had some thoughts about Tianyang. The Jiang family's forces were also among them. Not all of the Jiang family's forces wanted a woman to become the head of the Jiang family. Just like this, an undercurrent quietly formed with Tianyang as the center. Tianyang, on the other hand, was playing with the Green Lotus Palace's token in his hand. Although Jiang Xian knew the background of this token, she probably didn't know that it came from the immemorial Emperor Phantom of the Green Lotus Sword Immortal. In other words, Jiang Xian didn't know the true use of this Green Lotus Palace's token. Moreover, after the final battle of the Prodigy Tournament, the Green Lotus Palace's token had absorbed Xing Qingzi's divine vein, which gave Tianyang a special feeling. Perhaps it would play a big role in the Azure Emperor's secret treasure. Unknowingly, the bright moon had already arrived at the center of the sky. A beam of moonlight quietly descended. Then, a gate opened in the center of the Green Cloud Mountain range. End of chapter. Chapter 1662. Boom. A beam of dazzling light burst out from the center of the Green Cloud Mountains. Then, it shot toward the sky at a terrifying speed. Then, the beam of light, which was only as thick as a finger, suddenly enlarged. In an instant, it engulfed the surrounding mountains. Seeing this, the faces of the people who had been waiting outside changed slightly. This beam of light was the power of the Green Emperor's secret treasure that exploded every time the door opened. Every time the power exploded, it would impact the space of the Green Cloud Mountains. This beam of light looked ordinary. However, if one was hit by this beam of light, even if it was just a corner, one would be turned into ashes. Even a godly state expert would be turned into ashes in the blink of an eye. Even one's divine soul might not be left behind. This was the anger left behind by the Green Lotus Palace, an Archean force. After countless years, the door was forcibly opened by the 3 forces. When the 3 great factions first opened the door, the pillar of light at that time was many times stronger than the one now. A peak godly state expert and 2 emperors were seriously injured by the beam of light. Of course, that beam of light was a thing of the past. The emperors could still easily block the beam of light now. However, for godly state experts and demigods who could enter the Green Emperor's secret treasure, it was still a terrifying thing that could kill them instantly. Looking at the light pillar that stopped expanding after reaching a certain level, everyone's face turned cold. It was indeed an extremely powerful force in the Archean era. Even after countless years, it could still display such terrifying power. They wondered what level of force the Green Lotus Palace had in its heyday. What kind of treasures would be stored in the remaining relics? Thinking of this, everyone could not help but feel excited. They were looking forward to the next trip to the Green Emperor's secret treasure. Around the beam of light were people who had the key to the Green Emperor's secret treasure and could enter. There were also people who tried to sneak in after the Green Emperor's secret treasure was opened. Every time the Green Emperor's secret treasure was opened, there would be such people. However, since the 3 forces joined forces to forcibly open the Green Emperor's secret treasure, no one had succeeded. However, this did not hinder the people's desire to sneak into the Green Emperor's secret treasure and obtain the Archean treasure. From then on, they would defy the natural order and become someone above others. After all, in addition to the origin of the archaic Green Lotus Palace, there was another legend about the Azure Emperor's secret treasure. As long as the demigods who entered successfully walked out of the Azure Thearcha's secret vault, without exception, all of them would comprehend the divine Tao law within 10 years and integrate it into their own. They would then break through the barrier of the deity realm and step into the deity realm, the highest realm in the divine world. The saint realm was still following the will of the heavens, while the divine realm was truly in control of one's own world. The difference between the two was like the difference between heaven and earth. These cultivators couldn't be blamed. Even though they knew there was no chance of survival, they still wanted to give it a try. Boom! With a loud bang, the incomparably terrifying light pillar finally began to shrink. At this moment, the enormous energy contained within it gradually withered. Subsequently, it rapidly shrank into nothingness at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few minutes, the wrath of the ancient Green Lotus Palace, which could kill immortal state warriors, disappeared completely. And at this moment, countless people moved. Those who moved were not the three dominators and their subordinate forces who had the key to the Azure Emperor's secret vault, but those who did not have the key but still wanted to enter the secret vault. At the moment when the light pillar disappeared, the door had not yet appeared. However, in front of the crowd, there was no longer any power to block their way. This created a gap. At this moment, there was no obstruction to enter the Green Lotus Palace. Although this gap only lasted for a moment, the temptation of becoming a deity still attracted countless people to pursue this possibility. However, even the demigod experts had a hard time getting the chance. Boom! With a loud bang, the door opened. A light pillar that was slightly weaker than the previous one, but still terrifyingly powerful, opened up. Most of the demigods who tried to use this gap to enter the Azure Emperor's secret vault were sent flying by the open door. Blood spurted out of their mouth. Obviously, they were severely injured. However, a very small portion was completely crushed by the door and turned into a part of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Seeing this, Tianyang was slightly moved. In his previous life, and even in this life, in order to cultivate and become stronger, he had also desperately pursued the opportunity to become stronger. However, he was lucky. Although the process was very dangerous, he still survived and gained a lot. You can't go in yet. Seeing that the door of light had been completely formed, Tianyang was about to move when Jiang Xian spoke in a serious tone. The remains of the Archean forces will not be so simple. The next moment, a ray of green light shot out from the door of light. Pure and flawless green lotuses bloomed at the edge of the door of light. A strange power was also released from the door of green lotus. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed. He was actually a little familiar with this aura. Xing Qingzi's divine pulse. Could it be that the Azure Emperor's divine pulse is really related to the Azure Emperor's secret vault? Tianyang muttered to himself. However, this was not the time for Tianyang to think about it. When the door, which was covered with green lotuses, was completely stabilized, those who really held the key to the Azure Emperor's secret vault also moved in an instant. Although the Lotus Thearka's secret treasure was very complicated, 1 or 2 seconds in advance would not bring about much benefit, Luo Yunyang thought. However, none of the geniuses present were willing to fall behind others. Whoosh! In an instant, Tianyang's figure flashed and rushed out. He held the Green Lotus Palace token in his right hand and the key to the Azure Emperor's secret vault in his left hand. Gu Qing and Ling Yuhan were in the Vientiane Sky ruins. He wondered if he could bring the Green Lotus Palace token, which had absorbed the power of Xing Qingzi's divine pulse. However, the moment Tianyang approached, a suction force was released from the door of Green Lotus. However, this suction force was directed at Tianyang, or rather, the Green Lotus Palace token in Tianyang's hand. In an instant, Tianyang overtook many of the geniuses who had moved in the first instant with a speed that far exceeded the others. Then, he was the first to enter the door of Green Lotus and disappeared into it. Seeing this, Jiang Xian was also stunned. Yang Tian's speed was so fast? However, although the crowd was surprised by Tianyang's speed, they did not slow down. They also entered the door of Green Lotus one after another. Outside, those who were seriously injured or had been watching sighed with envy and jealousy. End of chapter. Chapter 1663. Boom. With a loud bang, it was as if the space had been shattered. Tianyang's body appeared in an unfamiliar space. Then, he fell rapidly from a height of 10,000 meters. Oh no! Seeing this, Tianyang's face changed. He was not sure what was going on in the Green Lotus Palace since he was suddenly sucked in by the Green Lotus Palace token. If there were any ancient mechanisms below, he would most likely be severely injured if he fell like this. Tianyang was not in his best condition. If he was severely injured, his trip to the Lotus Emperor's secret treasure would be in vain. Therefore, Tianyang shot out a brilliant light beam from his hand and shot it towards the ground. A strong airflow supported Tianyang's body. Tianyang also released his true origin to stabilize himself in midair. The Vientiane Sky Ruins is still here. I don't know if the Green Lotus Palace token is strong enough or if the Vientiane Sky Ruins can hide from the Green Lotus Palace. Tianyang sensed for a while and heaved a sigh of relief when he found that the Vientiane Sky Ruins was intact. Then, Tianyang thought of the old man in Black's Tianluo prison. It had already turned into his own small world. No matter how many small worlds there were, only the old man in black was left. However, Tianyang was still far from becoming a demigod, let alone a godly state cultivator who could open up his own small world. He could only think about it. But why can't I see the light door? Standing in midair, Tianyang suddenly realized that something was wrong. Dozens of seconds had passed, but there was still no one at the place where he was. When he looked up, the light door that was supposed to be above his head was also nowhere to be seen. Other than the light that came from nowhere to illuminate the area, there was nothing else. Could it be that this guy didn't suck me in through the door? Suddenly, Tianyang thought of a possibility and his face changed slightly. If that was the case, it would be impossible to find out about the Lotus Emperor's secret treasure through others. However, in the next moment, the Green Lotus Palace token in Tianyang's hand suddenly moved. Then, it broke free from Tianyang's control and shot downwards. What the hell? Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He released his spiritual energy, and after confirming that there was no threat below, he hurriedly followed. The reason he was here was because of the Green Lotus Palace token. If the Green Lotus Palace token ran away, Tianyang would have a headache. Furthermore, the title plate was something that belonged to the Green Lotus Sword Immortal. Bang! Tianyang landed on the ground, and the Green Lotus Palace token floated in front of Tianyang. However, it was different from the dull cyan color from before. The rest of it was just an ordinary metal token. Currently, the badge of the Green Lotus Palace was emitting rays of green light from its body. The entire token seemed to have become transparent, and streams of green light suddenly appeared around it. With the token of the Green Lotus Palace as the center, it was like a whirlpool that poured into the translucent crystal token. What's going on? Seeing this, Tianyang was a little stunned. The change of the Green Lotus Palace token greatly exceeded Tianyang's expectations. After entering the Green Lotus Palace ruins, Tianyang had not touched anything, but it had already changed? Boom! At this moment, a loud sound rang out. The Green Lotus Palace token stopped absorbing the surrounding light and automatically leveled itself, without any movement. A ray of light shot out, and a huge palace appeared in midair. The palace was completely green. Although it was built on a mountain peak, it was much larger than the mountain peak. Arches and cornices, green bricks and green tiles, it looked majestic and majestic. Even the Zhongshuan demon sect, one of the three great sects of the Lingfeng realm in Haomen, which had produced an emperor, was as small as an ant in front of a Kuanping when compared to this palace. Tianyang subconsciously reached out to touch it. Immediately, the majestic palace began to change. It directly showed Tianyang's current location. This is... Tianyang was stunned. He looked around and then looked at the image shown by the token. It was a perfect fit. A map of the entire Green Lotus Palace? Tianyang's body trembled as he carefully looked at the map that showed the surrounding terrain. However, upon closer inspection, he realized that it was not exactly the same. There were a few differences, such as the flatness of the ground and the difference in the light, which could be seen that it was not the current Green Lotus Palace. However, the main building was indeed exactly the same. Could this map be what the Green Lotus Palace looked like at the beginning? Tianyong muttered to himself. If that was the case, it could indeed explain the differences in these details. That was also true. The Green Lotus Palace token could only truly display its remarkable abilities after entering the Green Lotus Palace. How could it control the entire Green Lotus Palace in such a short time? If that was the case, wouldn't Tianyong be able to easily grasp the location of others and find trouble with whoever he wanted? Although Tianyong wanted to do so, it was still too impossible. However, although it is not the current map of the Green Lotus Palace, it is still extremely valuable. Tianyong muttered to himself, his eyes shining. Emperor Qing's secret treasure has only been opened a few times, and each time, it was not explored much. The three major forces do not even know where the core of Emperor Qing's secret treasure is. Not to mention, there's no need to mention what sort of opportunities and treasures are stored there. Although the Green Lotus Palace is an Archean relic, it has always been sealed. It was not until the three dominators of the South Central Hundred Territories joined forces that it saw the light of day again. Among them, due to the protection of the remaining power in the Green Lotus Palace, there are almost no changes except for some insignificant details. It means that I have control over the location of the opportunities in the Green Lotus Palace. Tianyong laughed heartily and held the Green Lotus Palace token in his hand. It was said that when he defeated the Green Lotus Sword Immortal, he had a narrow escape and was almost killed by the Archean Emperor. However, now that he had the Green Lotus Palace token, the reward was completely worth the risk. Then, there's no time to lose. Tianyong muttered to himself, and immediately retracted the map of the Green Lotus Palace token to the beginning, overlooking the entire Green Lotus Palace. Soon after, he locked onto his position and saw the closest opportunity to him. Elixir River Hall? Tianyong raised his eyebrows. What's that? However, Tianyong did not slow down. He immediately confirmed the direction and rushed toward the Elixir River Hall. In the Archean relic, there would definitely be no ordinary items. Tianyong naturally would not forget this. In a flash, Tianyong arrived outside the Elixir River Hall. Vigorous energy surged out from it. End of chapter. Chapter 1664. Boom. The surging energy seemed to have materialized as it surged out of the hall in front of Tianyong. The moment he landed, Tianyong even felt like he was almost swallowed by the terrifying energy torrent. However, Tianyong's mental fortitude was extraordinary. He managed to stabilize himself and was not blown away by the energy torrent. However, the energy torrent was so huge that Tianyong was greatly shocked. Even though the Heavenly Sword and the Undying Bloodline were greatly depleted, Tianyong's combat strength was not as strong as before. However, his physical strength did not change much. Even so, Tianyong was almost blown away by the energy torrent that leaked out of the Elixir River Hall. This showed how huge and terrifying the energy torrent was. What is this Elixir River Hall for? Tianyong raised his eyebrows, a hint of confusion in his eyes. According to the name, the Elixir River Hall should have something to do with elixirs. However, he sensed that there was no elixir aura in it. Instead, there was an energy torrent that was powerful enough to blow away a peak saint king like him. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth was helpful for the preservation of elixirs. However, if there was a certain amount of spiritual chi of heaven and earth, it would be detrimental for elixirs to maintain their stability. Moreover, the Green Lotus Palace was a relic from the Archean era. Even if there were elixirs, it could not have been preserved until today. Elixirs were not treasures. Spiritual stones could be preserved for countless years. For elixirs, it was considered good if they could be preserved for 1,000,000 years. However, let's go in and take a look first. Tianyong muttered to himself. Then, He stretched out his hand and opened the door of the Elixir River Hall. Boom! Another terrifying current surged out. Fortunately, Tianyang was prepared and would not be blown away by the energy torrent. However, the scene inside was very different from what Tianyang had imagined. There were not countless elixirs inside. There was not even a single stalk of the herbs needed to refine elixirs. There was not even a corpse. What replaced it was a river of elixirs that flowed in the hall like a real river. Tianyang was stunned when he saw this. The pill river seemed to flow down from the sky. No one knew where it ended. However, the pills inside were not destroyed by the passage of time like Tianyang had imagined. On the contrary, even now, the pills in the Elixir River were still releasing powerful auras. The frightening torrent of energy that had been released earlier had come from the pill river. However, the elixirs in the Elixir River were not any of the elixirs that Tianyang remembered. Even in Howman's records, there doesn't seem to be anything like this. At that moment, the heavens expanse Saint Spirit's voice rang in Tianyang's head. Hearing that, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Howman had once been glorious. During that time, they had collected a lot of ancient books. They even had some ancient books. However, even the heavens expanse Saint Spirit did not know about it. This Elixir River is called an elixir. In fact, it can only be called an elixir. There are no herbs in it. In terms of materials, there is only one kind of spiritual energy. When the spiritual energy fuses with the mineral veins, it becomes a spiritual stone. When it is pure to the point of crystallization, it becomes Reiki. When it is pure to the point of liquid, it becomes a spiritual elixir of heaven and earth. The amount of spiritual energy in a spiritual elixir of heaven and earth is not even comparable to 1,000,000 Reiki. Suddenly, a voice rang out slowly. Hearing that, Tianyang was stunned. His expression changed instantly. Who is it? Tianyang had obtained the map of the Green Lotus Palace from the Green Lotus Palace token and came to the Elixir River Hall. He did not expect that there would be someone else. I also want to know who you are. Then, a tall man walked in slowly from outside the door of the Elixir River Hall. His eyes were different from a human's. His pupils were elongated and vertical, and they were clear gold. He was handsome. However, compared to his facial features, the most eye-catching feature was the golden dragon scales on his temples. This Elixir River Hall was found by my ancestors from another place in the Emperor Qing's secret treasure by chance. My father and I have searched for a long time before we found it. How did you find out about it? Then, waves of powerful dragon energy exploded from the man's body. His aura had reached the peak of the demigod realm. Dragon Hall? Seeing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. He did not expect to meet one of his enemies as soon as he entered. Dragon Hall, Long Kuan. The man snorted. Then, his body flashed. In the next second, he appeared in front of Tianyang. No matter how you found out about this place, as long as you are here, you only have two choices. You can either die or get lost. Then, Long Kuan punched out. An incomparably terrifying force gathered on his fist and smashed down viciously at Tianyang. However, other than pure physical strength and dragon energy, this punch did not have any other energy waves. It was a simple, crude, and tyrannical punch. Boom! Tianyang instinctively tried to block it. However, when his fist collided with Long Kuan's fist, his skin exploded. A mist of blood spurted out. Seeing that, Tianyang's pupils shrank. This guy's physical strength was so strong? In terms of strength, he was probably close to the level of a god. He blocked it? Seeing that, Long Kuan raised his eyebrows. However, he did not let down his guard. He swung his right leg, and a powerful whip kick was aimed at Tianyang. However, this time, Heavenly Sun wouldn't foolishly take it head-on. A black light flashed in his hand, and the great void sword embryo appeared. Then, he stabbed it out. A distorted silver spacetime flashed. Spacetime instant. Instantly, space-time froze. Tianyang's sword landed on Long Kuen's body. Clang! However, when the tip of the sword landed on the other party's chest, a metallic sound rang out. Then, the space-time froze. Long Kuen took a few steps back. His face was filled with shock. However, there was only a faint wound on his chest. Moreover, it was recovering quickly. In just a few breaths, the injury caused by Tianyang's space-time instant had completely recovered. Seeing that, Tianyang's pupils shrank. What kind of sick physical body was this? So strong! Long Kuen was shocked. Then, he smirked. Although I don't know who you are not bad. In the next moment, his body shot towards Tianyang like a cannonball. Chapter 1665. Boom! Long Kuen's fist landed on the Great Void Sword embryo as usual. However, the speed and force of the punch almost caused Tianyang to lose his balance and fall into the Elixir River. Although Tianyang didn't know what would happen if he stepped into the Elixir River, he was clear about it. Regardless of whether there would be any harm in the huge energy current, it was a great opportunity for Long Kuen to expand his advantage. Don't think that you are the only one with a strong physical body. Tianyang snorted coldly and activated his immortal divine body. Streaks of immortal divine flames burned as he slashed out with his sword. At the same time, he released the star's sword body and the myriad stars' sword realm. In an instant, it was as if countless swords had gathered and shot towards Long Kuen. Sensing the sudden change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, Long Kuen's face froze for a moment before he grinned. Interesting. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, Tianyang's attack landed on Long Kuen's body. Long Kuen was sent flying by Tianyang's attack. However, even though he had sent his opponent flying, the grave expression on Tianyang's face didn't lessen by much. He could feel that the previous attack didn't seem to have caused much damage to Long Kuen. Immortal divine flames? You are from the undying Imperial Court? Long Kuen's dragon energy had to extinguish the immortal divine flames on his body. Although Long Kuen was stuck in the ground, he was still shocked. As if nothing had happened. So what if I am? Tianyang's face darkened. It seemed like the Eastern Cloud territory was different from the Lingfeng territory and the Cloud Fire territory. Anyone would be able to recognize the origin of Tianyang's immortal divine flames. It doesn't matter if you are or not. However, I have never fought anyone from the undying Imperial Court. In the next moment, Long Kuen stomped on the hard walls of the Elixir River Hall and shattered them. He was like a bolt of lightning as he charged towards Tianyang. 10,000 mammoths extermination. Naturally, Tianyang would not give Long Kuen the chance to get close to him. Long Kuen's physical body was too strong. If Tianyang were to engage in close combat, he would most likely be suppressed by Long Kuen's abnormally strong physical body. He had to make use of the advantage of his sword to suppress the other party. Bang! In an instant, a powerful sword radiance was formed and shot towards Long Kuen at a speed that could not be seen by the naked eye. A swordsman? Seeing this, Long Kuen was stunned for a moment before he grinned. I haven't fought anyone from the undying Imperial Court who uses swords before. After that, he clenched his right fist and condensed his dragon power. In just an instant, the frightening dragon force had activated the blood vessels in Long Kuen's right arm. It transformed into a golden dragon claw that was dozens of feet long. Boom! The dragon claw struck out and collided with the 10,000 mammoths' annihilation. However, this time, the dragon claw did not destroy the sword light as Long Kuen had expected. On the other hand, Tianyang's expression changed when he saw this. This guy from the Dragon Hall doesn't seem to know how to use martial skills? With such physical strength and the dragon power of a demigod, if he were to use martial skills, the explosive power would increase by leaps and bounds. But this guy, ever since the start of the battle, had never used even a single move or style of martial skill. Sila Tianyang tore open space and entered it. He used the 9th change of the boundless 9 transformations and appeared behind Long Kuan in the next instant. He slashed out with his sword. Bang! Long Kuan, who was using all his strength to deal with the 10,000 mammoths' annihilation, did not expect Tianyang to use such a move. His expression changed slightly as he activated the blood vessels in his body. His entire torso was covered in layers of dragon scales, which blocked the sword. Tianyang took this opportunity to use the true extermination flames to enter Long Kuan's body through the gaps between the dragon scales. What? Seeing this, Long Kuan's expression changed. Why is someone from the undying imperial court playing with other flames? After that, he activated the blood vessels in his body again. A dragon's roar erupted from Long Kuan's throat. Roar. A powerful dragon's aura was released. The 10,000 mammoths' annihilation, which had been blocked by Long Kuan's dragon claws, was destroyed by the dragon's aura. Following this, Long Kuan's human form disappeared and a huge dragon that was hundreds of feet long appeared in the Elixir River Palace. He revealed his dragon form just like that? Seeing this, Tianyang was stunned. Logically speaking, shouldn't Long Kuan have used some kind of dragon race bloodline ability to push him away? In the end, he activated his bloodline and revealed his dragon form? Roar, roar, roar! Long Kuan roared. Then, he swung his tail and charged towards Tianyang. Tianyang activated his true origin and raised his sword to block the tail. This time, he did not even retreat. Tianyang did not want to fight against someone like Long Kuan who only had strength but did not know how to use martial skills. Although Tianyang was only a few hundred years old, including his previous life, he had fought countless opponents and had long since gained a wealth of battle experience. Against someone like Long Kuan, he just needed to use a divine soul attack to knock him out. His eyes flashed and a distorted ray of light shot towards Long Kuan. Roar! Sensing the power of the divine soul attack, Long Kuan's face changed and he roared. Rays of light shot out from his golden eyes and the shadow of a dragon's soul appeared in his eyes. It actually blocked Tianyang's divine soul attack. Roar! Long Kuan roared and swung his dragon claws downwards. However, Tianyang swung his sword directly. However, it was not a head-on clash. Instead, it was a strange and gentle force that dissipated the power of Long Kuan's dragon claws. This time, Tianyang did not even move an inch. Long Kuan let out a low roar. It was obvious that his full-strength punch had been dissipated. The feeling of punching cotton made Long Kuan extremely unhappy. However, Tianyang had already figured out Long Kuan's plan. His body flashed, and he appeared on top of Long Kuan's head. Without hesitation, he sent a divine soul attack into the space between Long Kuan's eyebrows. Just as the shadow of the dragon's soul lit up, it was suppressed by the power of the divine soul. This golden eye obviously had the power to resist primordial spirit attacks. However, it was already strong enough to block the power of the divine soul once. It was impossible for it to block the second attack. Boom! Long Kuan lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Instantly, the entire Elixir River Hall shook. That's it. Tianyang had a strange expression on his face as he jumped down from Long Kuan's head. When he sensed Long Kuan's strong physical body, he thought that it would be a tough battle. Unless he used the Heaven Realm, he would not be able to end the battle easily. In the end, after using his divine soul to attack Long Kuan twice, Long Kuan fell. Why did the Dragon Hall send such a person to the Azure Thearka's secret treasure? Tianyang was speechless. After which, he grabbed Long Kuan and threw him out of the Elixir River Hall. After which, he went to the Elixir River in the Elixir River Hall and released his divine soul. Just a moment ago, in his soul sea, Emperor Tsangwu's inheritance blood suddenly sent out a message. It was about the Elixir River. Chapter 1666. The Kanwu Emperor's inheritance contained countless secrets and information about the divine world. Tianyang was extremely clear about this fact. After all, as the undying emperor, the undying heavenly ancestor was the last direct descendant of the undying heavenly ancestor. He was only a step away from breaking through to the emperor realm and becoming a supreme expert. The Kanwu emperor definitely knew more than Tianyang could imagine. However, Tianyang's current cultivation was merely at the peak of the heavenly emperor realm. Compared to the Kanwu emperor before he died, the difference between heaven and earth was indescribable. Not to mention, Tianyang couldn't even cultivate the immortal soul physique's final stage. It was impossible for him to completely inherit the Kanwu emperor's inheritance bloodline. Only by chance would he be able to obtain some information from the inheritance bloodline. For example, the origin spiritual pills in front of him had turned into a raging pill river. Spiritual energy fused into a stone to form a spirit stone. Spiritual energy condensed into a crystal. Spiritual energy condensed into a liquid. Spiritual energy condensed into a pill. Origin spiritual pills condensed into a pill. Streams of information flowed out from the Kanwu emperor's inheritance bloodline and entered Tianyang's body. Tianyang's expression changed slightly as he continued to read the information. The information was the same as what Long Kuan had said when he appeared. However, the Kanwu emperor's inheritance bloodline wouldn't change just because of an ordinary origin spiritual pill. There was definitely something extraordinary about the origin spiritual pill river in the Pill River Hall. The ancient superpowers seized the essence of heaven and earth to refine the spiritual energy of a realm into a vast pill river. The spiritual energy in the river was as vast as the stars. However, there were differences in spiritual energy, realm, and origin spiritual pills. Among them, one rune was inferior, while 10,000 runes were supreme. A single rune spiritual pill was equivalent to Wu Zun's lifetime of cultivation. A 10,000 runes spiritual pill was something even true saints could only sigh at. Streams of information flowed out from the inheritance bloodline. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. This didn't seem like the information recorded in the ancient records of the undying imperial court. Instead, it seemed like Emperor Tsangwu's own comment. My undying imperial court once had a 10,000 pattern pill river and created countless deity realm imperial emperors. However, after the primordial god-demon war, the heavens and earth were destroyed and the continents were torn apart. My undying imperial court couldn't escape the calamity. Although we've been rebuilt, we only have a 10-pattern pill river. What a pity! If he didn't die, the imperial court could have the 10,000 marks elixir river. Emperor Tsangwu's sigh came to an end. However, Tianyang was stunned. He had never seen a 10,000 marks pill river in the supreme ancient era. The undying imperial court had a 10,000 marks pill river. A 10,000 pattern spirit pill was comparable to a supreme saint's lifetime cultivation. Even if the immemorial undying imperial court's 10,000 patterns elixir river was only 1/10 of this raging river, it was still a shocking amount of wealth. More importantly, the undying imperial court still had a 10,000 marks pill river? Reaching out his hand, Huang Xiaolong took out an origin pill from the 10,000 patterns elixir river. 100 patterns was roughly equivalent to a half-true saint. He had only seen it in the Azure Emperor's treasury, and he could only cultivate it once. With the undying Emperor's status, he could easily enjoy something like the 10,000 marks pill river. In an instant, Tianyang's understanding of the undying imperial court became even clearer. The pressure on the undying Emperor's prince increased exponentially. That person might even be cultivating in the 10,000 marks pill river right now. Tianyang's heart sank as he raised his head. However, he didn't feel any pressure. Instead, a carefree smile appeared on his face. It seems like that guy is trash. He even has a 10,000 marks pill river, but I still killed him. In the next moment, Tianyang ignored the raging torrent in the 100 marks elixir river and stepped in. Boom! In an instant, the 10,000 marks Pill River swallowed Tianyang whole. That's right, the Undying Emperor was the #1 genius in the divine world. He was the strongest genius in the Undying Imperial Court, and he even had a 10,000 marks Pill River as his cultivation ground. But so what? To Tianyang, the stronger his opponent, the more motivation he had to cultivate. Boom! A tyrannical devouring force burst out. As the 10,000 marks Pill River flowed past, Tianyang remained standing in the middle of it. The 10,000 marks Pill River was swallowed by Tianyang. Although the 10,000 marks Pill River contained an enormous amount of energy, it was also unusually violent. With the devouring speed of the heavenly sun, this level of violence had reached a whole new level. In an instant, Tianyang's meridians were filled with spiritual energy. Even if Tianyang didn't use the heaven-devouring secret technique, the speed of refining his meridians was extraordinary. In an instant, Tianyang's meridians felt like they were being torn apart. Hiss! Tianyang sucked in a breath of cold air. He had underestimated the violent energy contained in the 10,000 marks Pill River. Just by devouring it, Tianyang felt like his entire body was being torn apart by the spiritual energy. A heart-wrenching pain came from his limbs and bones. But the more violent the spiritual energy is, the better it feels. The corners of Tianyang's mouth twitched as he circulated the divine desolate heaven spirit art, constantly refining the heaven-earth spirit chi. He was now in a severely injured state, and he couldn't use the strength that could defeat Honorable Qinggu. Although most of the reason was because the Sky Firmament Sword was damaged, the Sky Firmament Sword could also absorb spiritual energy other than demonic energy. The stronger the energy contained in the 10,000 marks Pill River, the more beneficial it would be for the Sky Firmament Sword's recovery. Boom! 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 Tianyang sat in the middle of the 10,000 marks Pill River, and the spiritual energy from the heaven and earth hit his body. It was like thunder, and it exploded crazily. Tianyang's body was also trembling. However, even though his undying bloodline was severely injured, it was still strong enough. It kept breaking down and recovering, then breaking down and recovering again. In Tianyang's dantian, the 10 great origins were circulating slowly. They were like a few starving primordial beasts, and they were grabbing nutrients. Tianyang's cultivation didn't increase by much. However, the 10 great origins were becoming stronger as they absorbed the spiritual energy from the heaven and earth. Boom! At this moment, Long Kuan, who had been thrown outside by Tianyang, woke up. Sensing the powerful suction force from the Pill River Hall, Long Kuan was completely stunned. Following which, his expression changed drastically. Roar! Long Kuan roared and turned into his human form. He directly blasted open the door of the Pill River Hall. However, the first person he saw when he rushed in was not Tianyang, who was absorbing the spiritual energy from the Pill River. Instead, it was a tall and muscular man. He lowered his head and looked at the stunned Long Kuan. His body was releasing the aura of a divine realm martial artist. Sorry for disturbing you. Long Kuan forced out a smile as he said this. Chapter 1667. Majestic energy surged in Tianyang's body. As his martial soul had been sublimated, he had forcefully unleashed the sky-devouring secret skill, which was beyond his limits. Many of his meridians, which had been damaged when he stepped into the divine state, were recovering under the nourishment of the powerful spiritual energy of the heavens and earth from the 100 Marks Elixir River. However, the nourishment was a little overbearing. In the beginning, the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth from the 100 Marks Elixir River almost tore apart Tianyang's meridians. During the process of recovery, Tianyang's meridians and elixir field became stronger under the elixir river's cleansing. Even his immortal divine body had improved a lot. Previously, Tianyang's physical body was already very strong. However, after the fight with Long Kuan, he realized that although his physical body was strong, it was still weaker than the bloodline of the Dragon Hall, who had all kinds of terrifying bloodlines. Although he was still a little weak, he had the power to fight with Long Kun head-on. Moreover, his immortal divine body had almost recovered. Now Tianyang could fight and resist. If he couldn't take it, he could recover quickly. His physical body was much stronger than ordinary people. In this case, I just need to wait for my martial soul to recover and I will be able to recover to my peak condition. Tianyang opened his eyes and muttered to himself. With the recovery of his meridians, elixir field and immortal divine body, Tianyang's absorption of the 100 marks elixir river had reached a saturation point. Although the sky cloud sword could devour the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth, it was not as powerful as devouring the demonic chi. If it continued to devour the sky cloud sword's martial soul, it would only be a drop in the bucket. Unless he devoured the entire elixir river. However, Tianyang could not do that. Before he could devour the entire elixir river to recover the sky cloud sword, Tianyang would not be able to withstand the enormous energy of the elixir river and his body would explode. However, there is still room for improvement in the 10 great origins? Sensing the changes in his body, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. This was beyond his expectations. He had thought that the 10 great essences would only continue to improve after he cultivated them into divine Tao laws. If he continued to cultivate, although he could still absorb the energy in the pill river for his own use, the effect would not be much. After all, Tianyang's cultivation was at the peak of the God realm. Due to the fact that Tianyang had already condensed the 10 great origins, if he wanted to progress, it would be just like when he went from heavenly great sage to holy emperor. If he didn't become a holy emperor, he wouldn't become a demigod. It's a pity that the elixir river can't be taken away. Otherwise, as the source of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the Vientiane Sky Ruins, it could make the Vientiane Sky Ruins a better place than the Hauman Fairy Cloud Cave. Tianyang sighed and walked out of the elixir river. At this moment, the green Lotus Palace token in Tianyang's bosom suddenly flew out. The next moment, beams of transparent green light burst out from the green Lotus Palace token. Then, a strong suction force burst out from the green Lotus Palace token. Suddenly, the entire 100 Patterns Elixir River seemed to be summoned by something and rushed toward the green Lotus Palace token. What the F***CK? Seeing this, Tianyang was dumbfounded. The green Lotus Palace token was so overbearing? Previously, it had absorbed Xing Qing Zi's holy pulse. Now, it even wanted to absorb the 100 Patterns Elixir River? Rumble! The entire Elixir River main hall shook. The sturdy bricks and tiles shook and dust fell. The vast Elixir River flowed upward like an inverted Milky Way. The map of the Green Lotus Palace appeared on the Green Lotus Palace token again. Then, the map changed to the Elixir River main hall. The Elixir River main hall lit up slightly. The Elixir River flowed into the Elixir River main hall. What's going on? Long Kun, who was blocked by Gu Qing, who was guarding the entrance of the Elixir River main hall, was dumbfounded. What did he see? The Elixir River, which was refined with the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth and contained a terrifying amount of spiritual energy of the heavens and earth, was being absorbed by some unknown thing? It seemed that this unknown thing had no limit and was continuously devouring the Elixir River. You're awake? Hearing Long Kun's roar of disbelief, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. The Green Lotus Palace token was very important. Although Jiang Xian knew a little about it, she didn't know much. Therefore, Tianyang didn't care. However, the Green Lotus Palace token's supernatural power had been seen by this person from the Dragon Hall. Tianyang naturally couldn't let this guy continue watching. Gu Qing, knock him out, Tianyang ordered decisively. Hearing this, Long Kun's face turned pale. Wait, I didn't see anything, Dong. Long Kun, who had just woken up for 3 minutes, was knocked out by Gu Qing's divine state power. He didn't even see what Tianyang was doing. At this moment, The Green Lotus Palace token had finished absorbing the 100 Patterns Elixir River. In the Elixir River Hall, there was nothing but the meandering river. This guy can swallow so much? Looking at the Green Lotus Palace token that had returned to its normal state after absorbing the 100 Patterns Elixir River, Tianyang was stunned. This Green Lotus Palace token was too powerful. The item left behind by the Archean Emperor's shadow is indeed extraordinary. He immediately caught the Green Lotus Palace token and his expression changed slightly. He had a premonition that this Green Lotus Palace token definitely contained a huge secret related to the Azure Emperor's secret treasure. If Tianyang was able to dig it out, it wouldn't be as simple as just breaking through to the divine state. However, this guy can't take out the 100 Patterns Elixir River after he swallowed it? Tianyang used his true origin to probe the Green Lotus Palace token. Unfortunately, he could feel the 100 Patterns Elixir River flowing inside, but he couldn't take it out. It was as if he was looking at a treasure mountain but was blocked by a lock. He could see it but couldn't take it. Forget it. When the secret of this item is dug out, I should be able to take out the 100 Patterns Elixir River. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth contained in 100 Patterns Elixir was comparable to the lifetime cultivation of a sage state. Even if Tianyang didn't take the whole elixir away, just a part of it would be enough to increase the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the Vientiane sky market by many-fold. However, I still have to deal with Long Kuan. Tianyang frowned slightly as he looked at Long Kuan, who had fainted again. Although this guy only saw the moment when the Green Lotus Palace token swallowed the 100 Patterns Elixir River, it was still a hidden danger. However, this guy doesn't seem to recognize me? Tianyang raised his eyebrows as he thought of the unfamiliar tone Long Kuan had used when he appeared. Back in the Azure Cloud mountain range, he had offended the Dragon Hall. Forget it. Bring him along. I can't let this guy spread the Green Lotus Palace token. Gu Qing nodded his head in agreement. He flung Long Kuan's body over his shoulder and followed Tianyang out of the Elixir River Hall. Chapter 1668. At the Thunder Tower in Emperor Qing's secret treasure. This was the place where the three great forces had first landed when they had forcibly opened the Green Lotus Palace. It was also the first place to enter the Thunder Tower after entering the Emperor Qing's secret treasure. Even though the Thunder Tower was one of the first places to be explored, it was not completely explored. Many treasures were found in it. However, as the place to enter the Emperor Qing's secret treasure, this place was often the place where the major forces fought. Streaks of lightning seemed to form a sea of lightning, enveloping the entire space. Jiang Xian's face darkened as she looked at Jiang Ling, who was standing with the goddess Snow's faction. Jiang Ling, what are you doing? She had just entered the Emperor Qing's secret treasure when she realized that her peak demigod subordinate was unconscious in the Thunder Tower. When she came back to her senses, she saw that Jiang Ling, who was supposed to be on her side, was standing with the goddess Snow's faction. What am I doing? Jiang Ling smirked when he heard what Jiang Xian said. Are you trying to say that the Jiang family's young master's peak demigod genius is going to be with a woman like you in the Emperor Qing's secret treasure? Or am I going to be with someone who doesn't even care when I'm being bullied by outsiders? Jiang Ling sneered and said. Jiang Xian was stunned when she heard what Jiang Ling said. She then said angrily, however, this is not a reason for you to attack the demigod subordinate of the Jiang family. That's right. At this moment, the goddess Snow's faction spoke slowly with a hint of mockery in their eyes. If Jiang Ling is really fighting for the Jiang family, he won't attack your demigod. It's a pity that Jiang Ling cares about the young master of the Jiang family and not you, Jiang Xian. The goddess Snow's faction's white hair swayed, and her light blue robe fluttered in the wind. Bolts of lightning swirled, twined, and released beneath his feet. However, they could not hurt him at all. They could only serve as a foil to him. What do you mean? Hearing this, Jiang Xian was a little surprised. Meanwhile, Jiang Xian sneered, That is, I don't like you at all. That's why I've decided to join forces with the snow goddess and kill you. What? Jiang Xian's expression changed drastically when she heard this. However, the members of the snow goddess faction wouldn't give Jiang Xian the chance to do so. As soon as Jiang Ling finished speaking, a strand of extremely cold energy was released from his body. Although it is extremely unwise to make a move against a power that is also one of the three great rulers right from the start, Chu Feng said with a smile. However, you are all alone now. The helpers beside you have all been disposed of by your Jiang family. It's not bad to be able to get rid of one person first. The snow goddess's people smiled. Then, the power of extreme frost ignored the rules of the lightning and sealed it in ice. Following it, the whole place turned into a world of ice and snow. Now, don't even think about leaving. The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline smiled and said. He extended his right palm and aimed it at Jiang Xian. Then, he clenched his fist. Boom! A ball of ice formed by the true origin of a peak demigod appeared where Jiang Xian was standing. It exploded. Don't let her escape. The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline said calmly. Hearing this, Jiang Ling nodded and dashed out. The eldest young master of the Jiang family hated this innate ability the most. It was a threat to Jiang Xian. If he could get rid of her in Supreme Tharch Qing's secret treasure, it would definitely be a great achievement. Go to hell! Jiang Ling roared and threw a punch at the solid ice. However, at this moment, a ball of fire started burning in the ice. After it melted the ice, a flaming palm print shot out from it. Boom! Jiang Ling's fist collided with the flaming palm print. Waves of fire spread in all directions and melted most of the ice and snow. At the same time, the waves of fire suddenly froze. Then, the surrounding area was covered in a sea of fire. Don't think that I'm weak just because I'm alone. After the ice melted, Jiang Xian said coldly. Then, she circulated her true origin. Pfft! Jiang Ling, who had collided with the flaming palm print, immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. After dealing with Jiang Ling, Jiang Xian dashed toward the leader of the snow goddess's bloodline in a flash. Jiang Ling was just a pawn that was being used by Yi Qingyu. The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline was the one who posed the greatest threat. Interesting. You actually have the Jiang family's true destiny flames? The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline smirked when he saw Jiang Xian dashing toward him. Following that, 8 foxtails appeared behind him as he unleashed an origin world. All things freeze. The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline spat out 4 words. In the next moment, a terrifying chill extinguished the sea of fire released by Jiang Xian's true destiny flames. It turned into a raging cold wave that charged toward Jiang Xian. Ah! The cold wave seemed to have materialized and broke through Jiang Xian's defense and crashed heavily into Jiang Xian's back. However, at this moment, a pillar of fire shot out from under the leader of the snow goddess's bloodline's feet into the sky. Boom! The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline was instantly engulfed by the pillar of fire. Interesting. The 8 foxtails swung and extinguished the pillar of fire. The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline smirked, and the origin realm came crashing down again. Jiang Xian spat out another mouthful of blood and was sent flying by this attack. However, although she was sent flying, the corners of Jiang Xian's mouth curled up into a strange smile. Do you think I can defeat you? Jiang Xian smiled and said. The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline was stunned when he heard that. In the next moment, he saw rays of light being released from Jiang Xian's body. Trying to run? The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline's face darkened. He stomped his feet and charged out. However, a ball of true destiny flames shot out and forced the leader of the snow goddess's bloodline to block it. His speed was greatly reduced. After he shattered the true destiny flames and arrived at where Jiang Xian was originally standing, Jiang Xian was long gone. This woman is cunning. The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline's face darkened, and he said angrily. Jiang Ling's eyes narrowed when he saw this. He turned and glared at the leader of the snow goddess's bloodline. Didn't you say that if you attacked, Jiang Xian would definitely die? Scram! The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline swung his arm and sent Jiang Ling flying like a sandbag. Does this guy really think he's someone important after being used? The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline said coldly. I didn't expect her to escape. Snow goddess's bloodline search. The leader of the snow goddess's bloodline swung his arm and ordered coldly. Tianyang looked at the nearest treasure location on the Green Lotus Palace token and nodded. He immediately sped up. This map of the Green Lotus Palace was definitely his biggest cheat in the Lotus Thearka's secret treasure. Rip. Suddenly, there was the sound of space being torn apart. A petite figure fell from the space crack above Tianyang. Chapter 1669. The crack in space opened up. Then, wrapped in crimson flames, a petite figure fell from the sky. Tianyang instinctively reached out his hand and caught her firmly. However, the moment he saw the other party's appearance, he was stunned. Jiang Xian? Tianyang had not expected that the Jiang family's eldest young mistress, who was on friendly terms with him and had parted ways with him after entering the Qing Thearka's secret chamber, would suddenly appear in front of him. Moreover, she appeared in such a manner. What's with the flames, and she's injured? Tianyang's expression turned serious after a glance. However, the true flames of destiny that surrounded Jiang Xian's body had unknowingly touched Tianyang's skin. If Tianyang had not reacted quickly and extinguished the flames in time, the true flames of destiny would have spread to his clothes. She's the representative of the Jiang family. How dare someone attack her? And force her to use such a method of teleportation? Tianyang's expression changed when he sensed the extremely weak aura on Jiang Xian's body. This was not an ordinary injury. The injury was caused by the backlash of the flames. Tianyang only needed to use the green sacred fire in the true flames of destruction to heal it. However, there was an extremely cold force in the depths of Jiang Xian's body. It was extremely hot on the outside and extremely cold on the inside. Furthermore, it was a huge burden on the body to forcefully tear open space. If not for Jiang Xian's special body constitution, she would have been killed by this injury. Although she was not dead, she had lost consciousness. If she had not met Tianyang, she would have been either dead or crippled. The opportunity has either been discovered by the three superpowers of the South Central Hundred Territories and is now being explored, or it has not been discovered and no one will go there for a while. Now let's save her first. Tianyang frowned and made a decision. Then, he opened the space door to the Vientiane sky ruins and walked in. Since Jiang Xian had forcibly torn open space to escape, there must be pursuers behind her. Even Tianyang would find it difficult to treat such an injury. He could not allow anyone to disturb him. It was safer in the Vientiane sky market. Whoosh! In the next moment, Tianyang appeared in the Vientiane sky market. Master, why are you here? Seeing Tianyang, Ling Yuhan was stunned. Tianyang had entered the secret chamber of Emperor Qing. Shouldn't he be searching for something in the secret chamber of Emperor Qing? However, in the next second, Ling Yuhan noticed Jiang Xian in Tianyang's arms. She is. Ling Yuhan's expression changed slightly, but she immediately recalled who this person was. The Jiang family member from Haoxiao Divine Mountain? Now, it's the immemorial Jiang family from the Azure Thearka's secret treasure, Tianyang said casually. Then, he laid Jiang Xian flat on the ground and summoned the true flames of destruction. Although the true flames of destruction was best at destruction, it had merged with the sacred flame, the green hellish sacred flame, and had a strong vitality. It was most effective in dealing with the injuries caused by the spiritual fire outside Jiang Xian's body. Then, Tianyang made a move. The true flames of annihilation, which had transformed into the cyan hellish sacred fire, burned in his palm and pressed it against Jiang Xian's back. Then, he released rays of healing power. The wounds on Jiang Xian's body swiftly healed under the healing power of the green hellish sacred flame. However, just as Tian Yang's green hellish sacred flame entered Jiang Xian's body to deal with the extreme heat brought about by the scarlet flames, a ball of true flames of destiny exploded from Jiang Xian's body. At the same time that it extinguished Tianyang's sacred flame, it came out of her body and charged toward Tianyang with bared fangs and brandished claws. There's only so much left, but it still has such power? Seeing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and felt a little surprised. Then, with a wave of his hand, the gentle sacred flame instantly turned into the overbearing true flames of destruction. With the absolute advantage in numbers, it destroyed the true flames of destiny that tried to attack Tianyang within 3 seconds. However, Tianyang was surprised to find that his true flames of destruction were damaged in the process of destroying the true flames of destruction. After all, the quantity of the true flames of destruction was much greater than that of the scarlet flames. Could it be that this flame is a divine fire? Tianyang's eyes narrowed. The true flames of destruction were already a demigod fire. If it could suppress a demigod fire, it must be a divine fire. However, when Tianyang wanted to continue studying Jiang Xian's scarlet flames, which he suspected to be a divine fire, without the suppression of the scarlet flames, the extremely cold energy in Jiang Xian's body suddenly burst out. In an instant, except for the ground under Tianyang's feet, the ground within a radius of 10,000 meters was completely frozen. This cold qi was not much weaker than Xue Tianyan's back then. However, Xue Tianyang had attacked directly. This was just the attack left in Jiang Xian's body by the attacker. This is the bloodline of the snow goddess? Tianyang's expression changed when he sensed the energy that was extremely similar to Xue Tianyang's. How could the bloodline of the snow goddess be so arrogant? They attacked the people of the Jiang family as soon as they arrived. From the looks of it, he was aiming to kill Jiang Xian. Was the bloodline of the snow goddess not afraid of provoking a conflict between the two great forces? Although it would not escalate into a war between the two great forces, a small conflict between the two great forces would be magnified countless times. However, the extremely cold energy of the bloodline of the snow goddess is a little tricky. The area within a radius of 10,000 meters was frozen by the trace of the extremely cold energy. It even seemed to be continuing to go deeper into the Vientiane sky market. When Tianyang had fought with Xue Tianyang, he had used brute force to forcefully break through Xue Tianyang's power. Right now, Jiang Xian's body had become extremely weak under the impact of the ice and fire. If they were to use the same method as before, Jiang Xian would most likely be finished before the power of ice could be dispelled. If it doesn't work, I can only use pills. Tianyang's lips twitched. Although his alchemy skills were good, he had not refined pills for a long time. There was not much left in his stock. However, the current situation could only be solved by using a medicinal pill with a mild medicinal effect. Master, let me do it. At this moment, Ling Yuhan's voice sounded. Then, the aura of the nine-tailed moon fox martial soul was released. No, this is at least the attack of a demigod. If you come, it might hurt you. Tianyang didn't even think about it and flatly refused. No matter how much he consumed, he could not allow Ling Yuhan to be in any danger. At this moment, the power of the snow goddess in Jiang Xian's body suddenly left Jiang Xian and shot toward Ling Yuhan. Tianyang didn't even have to lift a finger before the extremely troublesome power of extreme cold left Jiang Xian's body. Tianyang's face changed drastically. He quickly turned around and summoned the true flames of destruction. However, he saw it. The snow-white nine tails swung. In an instant, the power of extreme coldness and the 10,000-meter-long ice under her feet swept out. Everything turned into nothingness, disintegrated by Ling Yuhan. Chapter 1670. She swung her 9 snow-white foxtails. that 10,000 meters of ice, as well as the power of extreme cold that was rushing towards Ling Yuhan, had all disappeared as if they had never existed. Tianyang's spiritual sense could only sense that the energy seemed to have entered Ling Yuhan's body in a special way. Or rather, it was being controlled and suppressed by the nine-tailed moon fox martial soul. In the end, it became Ling Yuhan's own energy. Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Although he could do something similar with his strength. However, it was only similar. He used a powerful force to suppress the extreme cold energy. However, Ling Yuhan was completely different. It was as if Ling Yuhan was born to be able to suppress this power of extreme frost, and this power of extreme frost should have submitted to Ling Yuhan from the very beginning. At this moment, Tianyang's expression changed. He sensed with his spiritual sense that Ling Yuhan was no longer an ordinary cultivator in the Holy Emperor realm. Instead, she was like the Emperor of the world, the ruler of the world. The extreme cold energy from before was like a subject under the Emperor's feet. However, it still released a terrifying aura. Ling Yuhan's entire aura had also become much colder. Master, I have absorbed the energy. At this moment, Ling Yuhan swung her fox tail and said excitedly. Tianyang suddenly understood. It was as if what he had sensed earlier was just an illusion. However, he frowned. You have absorbed it directly? Tianyang frowned. The crystal that he had obtained from Shui Tianyan, which was closely related to the snow god's bloodline, had also been easily absorbed by Ling Yuhan. This was obviously the extreme cold energy from an attack, but it had been absorbed by Ling Yuhan? The power of the first crystal was still manageable. After all, even though it came from the bloodline of the snow goddess, it was not offensive at all. Perhaps it was meant to be absorbed. However, the one at the back was going for the kill. How could Ling Yuhan absorb this kind of energy? Yes. Ling Yuhan nodded her head. She then closed her eyes and sensed for a moment. There doesn't seem to be any changes. I haven't made any breakthroughs in my cultivation. The corner of Tianyang's mouth twitched. There was no breakthrough in his cultivation. This extreme cold energy was used to kill people. If he could break through after absorbing it, that would be amazing. The goddess of snow's people could just surrender when they met Ling Yuhan. What was the point of fighting? However, Tianyang had never encountered such a situation before. It was so strange that it exceeded Tianyang's expectations. However, there is more than one person from the snow goddess's bloodline in this place. Tianyang pursed his lips. Then, in a flash, he arrived at the Heaven's Expanse Temple. At the end of the day, the Vientiane Sky Ruins was just a small world created by a sage from the Xiantian Great World. Although it was quite stable, and the heavenly sun had been strengthened several times after reaching a higher level, it was still impossible for two demigods to run amok there. Therefore, Tianyang locked them in the Heaven's Expanse Temple, which had been upgraded to the level of a divine artifact after absorbing 3 Heaven's Expanse Temple. If not for the fact that Tianyang was not familiar with how to use the Heaven's Expanse Saint Palace to suppress his enemies, he would have directly used it to smash Long Kuan. Why are you here? In the Heaven's Expanse Temple, Shui Tianyang, who was talking to the young man in black about being captured, sensed the commotion at the door. His expression changed instantly. You brat, how dare you? At this moment, the young man in black spoke and looked coldly at Tianyang. I'm just a descendant of the Jiang family's guardian. Perhaps the Jiang family wouldn't care if you captured me. However, how dare you capture a genius from the Snow God's faction? That's treason. Do you want to offend all 3 great forces in the Southern 100 territories? The 3 great forces don't even need to attack. They only need to blow a breath, and you, your friends, your partner, and the forces behind you will all die. The young man in black shouted loudly. He was full of energy, as if he did not care if his words would anger Tianyang. In his opinion, capturing a subordinate force of one of the three great sovereigns was enough to make an ordinary person tremble in fear. Now, he dared to capture someone from the Snow God's faction. He was courting death. However, when Tianyang heard this, he raised his eyebrows and looked surprised. "How did you know that I captured someone from the Dragon Hall outside?" The young man in black was stunned. Then, he laughed coldly. "How laughable! The people from the Dragon Hall are all experts in body refinement. You may be strong in sneak attacks and your guards are strong, but they are useless in front of the people from the Dragon Hall. Especially Long Zhu and Long Kuan of the Dragon Hall. With these two people, the Dragon Hall is invincible. Even if you attack with all your strength, you won't be able to break through their defenses." The young man in black laughed disdainfully. "So, why aren't you letting us go? Otherwise, the Snow God's faction will never let you go. Why do you have Brother Shueze's aura on you?" However, at this moment, Shui Tianyang's expression changed drastically. Or did Brother Shueze use the power of the Snow God to activate the aura of the origin world? Could it be that you fought with Brother Shueze? Shui Tianyang roared in disbelief. The young man in black's expression froze. He had just said that the Snow God's faction would never let Yang Tian go. Now, this person from the Snow God's faction was telling him that Yang Tian had already fought with someone from the Snow God's faction? Wasn't this a slap to his face? However, Shui Tianyang had no time to pay attention to this person who had been slapped in the face. His eyes were fixed on Tianyang. "You fought with Brother Shueze. How did you survive?" "Oh, I ate that guy's power of extreme cold, just like I ate your snow spirit essence," Tianyang said with a smile. "Ate the snow spirit essence?" Shui Tianyang was stunned. Then, he saw the 9 snow-white foxtails on Ling Yuhan's body. His pupils shrank to the size of a needle. Although Tianyang had sealed his cultivation, his aura was still trembling. It was only because he was restrained that he couldn't burst out. However, one could see the shock in Shui Tianyang's heart from his distorted face. 9 foxtails. That's a bloodline density that even Brother Shueze doesn't have. How could a guy in the Lingfeng realm have? Shui Tianyang mumbled to himself, as if he had lost his soul. Then, his eyes shone with a dazzling light. Could it be that you possess the power of the Snow God? Chapter 1671. The power of the Snow God? At this moment, Shui Tianyao had even forgotten what state he was in. He directly stood up and glared at Ling Yuhan. Impossible! How could a Lingfeng realm cultivator, who doesn't even know what the Snow God's bloodline is, have 9 tails? How could she have the power of the Snow God? It's fake, it's definitely fake! Shui Tianyang roared. However, Tianyang's expression changed slightly when he heard that. 9 tails? Speaking of which, the Shueze that Shui Tianyang mentioned should be the one who attacked Jiang Xian. If he could attack Jiang Xian, he should be the leader of the Snow God's bloodline. How could such a person not be a 9 tails? Is 9 tails special? My father seems to have 9 tails as well. Ling Yuhan said with a confused expression. In Tianshao Great World, the 9-tailed monster king was 9 tails. How can the 9 tails of the other trashy fox bloodlines be the same as the 9 tails of the Snow God's bloodline? Shui Tianyang laughed in disdain. Those 9 tails are just the result of those fox demons trying to establish a relationship with the immemorial divine bloodline. However, they only have the form but not the spirit. Although they are called 9 tails, they are actually no different from 1 tail. Other than looking good, they are completely useless. Only the Snow God's bloodline has the immemorial divine bloodline. The 9 tails are the representation of the immemorial divine bloodline, Shui Tianyang said. Then, he looked at Ling Yuhan and threatened, "You better tell me where the 9 tails in your body came from. Otherwise, even if I can't kill you now, the millions of disciples of the Snow God's bloodline will hunt you down to the ends of the earth." Noisy. However, at this moment, Heavenly Sun spoke. He pointed his finger and a sharp ray of light pierced through Shui Tianyang's chest. I'm just here to ask you why Yuhan can absorb the power of the snow god's bloodline. I also want to know what a nine-tails is. I'm not here for you to talk nonsense, Tianyang said calmly. Shui Tianyang looked down at his chest that was pierced through by the ray of light and burned by the true flames of destruction. Not a single drop of blood came out of the hole. He looked up at Ling Yuhan, his eyes filled with disbelief. This guy, just like that, killed me? Boom! Shui Tianyang fell to the ground, and the true flames of destruction burned his corpse to ashes. You killed him just like that? Seeing this, Ling Yuhan was a little surprised. He did not expect Tianyang to be so decisive. He has no value. Kill him. Tianyang said. Shui Tianyang. Shui Tianyang sky ruins was ruins was the sky ruins was the sky ruins was the sky ruins skies ruins was ruins sky 11111 However, the Vientiane sky ruins was the foundation of the Tianyang. Most of his assets were there. If Shui Tianyao didn't know some information that Tianyang wanted to know, how could he still be alive? Now that this guy saw QB and sensed Shui Zai's power, in a moment of desperation, he told Tianyang the things that he had always asked but never said, so there was no need for this guy to stay. On the other hand, the black-clothed young man's heart trembled violently as he watched his companion, who cursed Yang Tian and planned how to torture Yang Tian, turn into ashes just like that. What the hell is going on? There was actually someone in the 100 territories of the South Central who dared to kill someone from the bloodline of the Snow Goddess? You killed Shui Tianyi? Right at that moment, a surprised voice rang out from behind. Tianyang turned around and saw a pale and weak Jiang Xian standing behind him, looking at Tianyang in surprise. I heard that Shui Tianyao from the bloodline of the Snow Goddess had mysteriously disappeared, and there was no news about him until now. I thought it was fake news. Now, I just happened to see Shui Tianyao being killed, Jiang Xian said. Hearing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Oh right, the person beside you is the grandson of your deity bodyguard. What do you think? Tianyang was not surprised that Jiang Xian was able to enter the Heaven's Expanse Saint Palace. With Jiang Xian's methods, it was possible for her to bypass the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit. However, what surprised him was that the black-clad old man. Since he was Jiang Xian's bodyguard, he should be able to tell that the black-clad young man had a similar aura to the black-clad old man. Why was he still paying attention to Shui Tianyao? Right at that moment, seeing the young Miss Jiang Xian that he had been thinking about day and night, the black-clad young man's pupils shrank, and he shouted crazily. Young Miss! Young Miss! That damned Yang Tian actually captured me, and even trapped my grandfather in some unknown place, causing my key to be stolen by Yang Tian. Young Miss Jiang Xian, you must seek justice for me! The black-clad young man shouted crazily. Hearing that, Jiang Xian's expression did not change, and she smiled faintly. That's all right. He has been stealing resources from me for his grandson. I know that very well. Hearing that, the black-clad young man's body froze, and the expression on his face froze. He had indeed obtained a lot of resources through his grandfather. At the beginning, I turned a blind eye. After all, the old man was indeed loyal to me, and it was reasonable for him to give some cultivation resources to his grandson. Jiang Xian smiled, and a murderous look flashed across her eyes. However, before the young master of the Jiang family started, this guy insisted that I should confront him directly. That's not right. I don't have the ability to wrestle with the legitimate heir, Jiang Xian said faintly. Hearing that, the black-clad young man was stunned. Of course, it's possible that he doesn't know these things. However, this time, the traitor of the Jiang family, who almost killed me in the hands of the Snow Goddess, was recommended to me by that guy. He said that although this person was arrogant, he had the Jiang family in his heart, and would not be like the other subordinates of the young masters. I believe him. If it weren't for you, I would have died long ago," Jiang Xian said with a smile. However, there was killing intent lingering around her. The surrounding space seemed to have solidified. The black-clad young man was also dumbfounded. Then he remembered that after getting the key to the young master's secret treasure, the black-clad old man had told him to help himself and not Jiang Xian. At that time, he didn't understand, but now it seemed that, if he helped Jiang Xian would not die. Suddenly, the black-clad young man trembled and shouted crazily, Miss Jiang Xian? Those were all done by my grandfather alone. It had nothing to do with me. Those plans were made by my grandfather and the young master. I just wanted to get Yang Tian's key. Now that it has been taken, Miss Jiang Xian, please let me go. The black-clad young man shouted crazily. Hearing that, Jiang Xian smiled and shook her head. But I refuse. Then, a true flame of destiny appeared out of thin air and appeared in the black-clad young man's heart. In the blink of an eye, he turned into ashes. Seeing that, Tianyang shook his head and muttered, "Wonderful." Chapter 1672. Tianyang did not expect that there would be so many twists and turns just because he had captured a person. However, it had nothing to do with him. The only thing he could sigh about was that the Jiang family was indeed one of the three most powerful forces that dominated the 100 territories. Tianyang did not even want to think about the issue of the successor. "Sorry for making a fool of myself." Jiang Xian turned her head and smiled. "Also, thank you for your help." Jiang Xian's words of gratitude were spoken with sincerity. After all, the leader of the Snow God tribe, Shuizhe, had unleashed his strongest killing move in order to kill Jiang Xian. Jiang Xian's strength was not as strong as Shuizhe's, but she had used all kinds of methods to delay Shuizhe so that she could have a chance to escape. However, even so, if Tianyang had not saved her in time, Jiang Xian would have died in the extreme cold left by Shuizhe even with the protection of the true flames of destiny. "It's okay, it was nothing." Tianyang shrugged. What he had done was to release streams of life force with the green mystical fire to help Jiang Xian recover and destroy the true flames of destiny. The rest was all a matter of Ling Yuhan's tail flapping, and had nothing to do with him at all. Whether it was nothing, it was a life-saving grace. Jiang Xian raised her head and looked seriously at Tianyang with her big bright eyes. "So, I won't agree to marry you." Before Jiang Xian could finish, Tianyang interrupted her. "Of course not, Big Brother really likes to talk nonsense." Jiang Xian burst into laughter when she heard this. Although most of the treasures in the Qing Emperor's secret treasure have not been explored by the three great rulers, the archaic Jiang family is still aware of some of them. Only the archaic Jiang family knows about one of the treasures. Moreover, only I know about it because I am the leader of the archaic Jiang family in the Qing Emperor's secret treasure. Jiang Xian smiled. Although it is not enough to repay a life-saving grace with a secret, it is enough to repay a part of it, Jiang Xian said. Tianyang raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Since he had the Green Lotus Palace's token, he naturally had no lack of treasures. If he randomly found a hidden treasure nearby, it was likely that the three major forces had never discovered it before. However, since Jiang Xian had said so, Tianyang could not refuse. "Then, sure." Tianyang smiled and nodded. At this moment, a loud sound suddenly came from the sky. Boom! Soon after, several half-god auras wreaked havoc in the Vientiane sky market. Tianyang's expression changed instantly. However, this was not because the enemy had invaded the Vientiane sky market. Instead, Gu Qing, who was guarding the outside, was attacked by several demigods. The tribe of the Snow Goddess is quite fast. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up. Jiang Xian's face changed when she sensed the aura. "Shuizhe, how did this guy find me?" "That guy left a cold energy in your body. I just removed it, so it's not surprising that he could find it. However, I didn't expect him to be so fast." Tianyang opened a crack in the space that led to the outside world and smiled. Hurry up, Gu Qing can hold on, but I can't. I haven't had a good fight since I recovered a little. Why is there a godly state in the Qing Emperor's secret treasure? Looking at Gu Qing, who was standing in front of them and releasing an extremely tyrannical godly realm aura, the people from Goddess Snow's faction could not help but be stunned. Only demigods could enter the Qing Emperor's secret treasure. Even the archaic Jiang family and the other two great powers could not enter after so many years of preparation. In other words, even the three great emperors could not let a godly state in. Where did this godly state come from? Could it be that there are living creatures in the Qing Emperor's secret treasure? Immediately, some people guessed in their hearts, and their expressions became much more serious. If that was the case, they would be in trouble. However, a young man standing at the front of the tribe of the Snow Goddess sneered. So what if he's a godly state? Like Brother Xueze, who is in the top 10 of the True Dragon Roll, he has the ability to fight with a godly state. Although Big Brother Xueze is not here, if we join forces, we will be able to compete with Big Brother Xueze. The divine state will not be a problem for us. The white-haired young man said proudly. He was only a peak demigod, which was a far cry from Gu Qing's middle-stage godly state. However, his words were filled with confidence. He was confident in himself and the tribe of the Snow Goddess. A lone spirit from the Green Lotus Palace that had been destroyed in the Primordial Age wanted to fight with the tribe of the Snow Goddess? That's right. Hearing this, the tribe of the Snow Goddess was filled with confidence and attacked Gu Qing again. Gu Qing's face did not change as he threw out a punch. However, this time, the attack of the tribe of the Snow Goddess was not a simple attack. Instead, it turned into a cage and surrounded Gu Qing. This guy must have stayed in the Qing Emperor's secret treasure for too long, so he can't use much of his godly state cultivation. As long as we can trap him, everything will be fine. The white-haired young man laughed. Then, in a flash, he charged towards the entrance of the Vientiane Sky ruins that Gu Qing was guarding. The aura that Brother Xueze left for us is here. Jiang Xian, that bitch, must be in this spatial rift right now, the white-haired young man said ferociously. Then, he planned to charge into the Vientiane Sky ruins. However, at this moment, a hand reached out from the crack. Unexpectedly, the white-haired young man was pushed away. Who is it? Seeing this, the white-haired young man's face changed. This aura. I've never seen it before, however. Jiang Ling, who had been following him, sensed the aura. His pupils constricted and his eyes turned red. This guy is Yang Tian. Jiang Ling would never forget the humiliation he felt when Tianyang stepped on his face, and he was unable to resist at all. He could only allow himself to be stepped on. Now that he had met his enemy, his eyes turned red. Murderous intent exploded from Jiang Ling's body. Yang Tian? Hearing this, the white-haired young man's face darkened. He seemed to have heard this name before. At this moment, the hand that pushed the white-haired young man away also reached out from the crack in space. Then, Tianyang appeared in the outside world. I didn't expect you to remember me. Tianyang smiled and said. Then, are you here to seek death? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 1673. Are you courting death right now? Tianyang said with a smile. Jiang Ling, who was already raging with murderous intent, was instantly enraged. He gathered his true origin, which was at the peak of the demigod realm. Then, he completely forgot about the lesson he had learned from his defeat at the hands of Tianyang and charged at Tianyang. Creation God sealing. Jiang Ling roared, and his true origin instantly became illusory and strange. They turned into two colors, black and white, and displayed the power of creation. The power that was released in that instant was actually many times stronger than before. Interesting. Seeing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. He thought this guy was just repeating the tragedy from before. He did not expect him to be so capable. However, before he could punch, the white-haired young man frowned and snorted. "Stop!" Then, he released his true origin, which was at the peak of the demigod realm but was obviously much stronger than Jiang Ling. He actually managed to suppress the power of creation that was on the verge of exploding. Seeing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. This guy seemed to be stronger than the demigods he had met before. Tianyang licked his lips and showed a hint of interest. This was the opponent he wanted to fight. "I remember now. You're the Jiang Ling who offended the Dragon Hall and the Jiang family in the Emerald Cloud Mountain," the white-haired young man said in a deep voice. He had seen Tianyang's strength before. Although the white-haired young man was not weak, the most important thing now was to kill Jiang Xian. Only when Jiang Xian was dead could the Snow God's bloodline be relieved of their worries. "Hand Jiang Xian over, and we won't have to fight. You'll also gain the favor of the Snow God's bloodline," the white-haired young man said. "Didn't you offend the Dragon Hall? Even the Dragon Hall has to give the Snow God's bloodline some face. The Snow God's bloodline can still deal with a person from the Dragon Hall," the white-haired young man said. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. "Is the Snow Goddess's lineage that important?" Tianyang smiled. His tone was flat, making it hard for people to guess what he meant. "Of course. Although my Snow Goddess's lineage is not the head of the three great rulers, we can definitely surpass either the Dragon Hall or the immemorial Jiang family. In the 100 territories of the south-central region, my Snow Goddess's lineage is the one with the greatest reputation," the white-haired young man said proudly. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled again. "If I don't give you face, wouldn't I be stronger than the Snow Goddess?" Hearing this, the white-haired young man was stunned. Then, his face darkened instantly. "You mean you want to refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit?" The moment the white-haired young man finished speaking, the people from the Snow Goddess's faction around him suddenly attacked. "Die!" Streaks of snow-white light burst out from Tianyang's body and turned into a series of attacks aimed at Tianyang. Each of these streaks contained the true origin of a peak demigod. After combining with each other, the power released was even more powerful. Even Gu Qing had not been able to withstand the combined attack of these people. He had only withstood it because of the toughness of the Emperor Corpse puppet's body. Now, Tianyang was obviously much weaker than Gu Qing. Naturally, it was impossible for him to withstand their combined attack. Boom! However, a loud sound suddenly came from the side. The seal that the Snow Goddess's faction had placed on Gu Qing was finally broken by Gu Qing. In the next moment, he appeared beside Tianyang and threw out a heavy punch. Boom! A surging wave of air swept up a terrifying space storm and surged wildly in all directions. Even though they were high up in the sky, the ground below them was still blasted open by the wave of air. The terrain was stirred up like waves. The combined attack of the goddess of snow's bloodline was defeated by this one punch. "What?" Seeing this, the white-haired young man's expression changed. How did this guy break free? Also, why would this godly state warrior help Yang Tian? However, after throwing out the punch, Gu Qing did not stop. Instead, he immediately moved and appeared in front of the white-haired young man. The pitch-black fist attacked again. This time, it carried layers of divine power. Humph! A guy who only knows how to use brute force. Faced with such a terrifying attack, the white-haired young man smiled disdainfully and attacked again. 7 foxtails appeared behind him. Snow-melting sky. The 7 foxtails swayed and a strange light flickered. Gu Qing's punch seemed to be slowed down, becoming incomparably slow. The white-haired young man took advantage of this opportunity and threw a punch at Gu Qing's body. In an instant, a freezing force was released. Gu Qing's entire body was frozen by a layer of ice. "I've taken care of that brainless guy who only knows how to use brute force. Now, it's time to deal with you." Those who dare to disrespect the snow goddess's faction must die. The white-haired young man roared angrily. White flames appeared beside him. Although it was fire, it was releasing a strange chill. It merged with the white-haired young man's true origin and turned into a huge palm print that blasted toward Tianyang. Today will be the day you die. At this moment, Jiang Ling, who was stopped from attacking Tianyang, roared angrily and released his true origin. Black and white once again appeared next to Jiang Ling, creation and deity sealing. A strange punch that seemed to come from the primordial era was released from Jiang Ling's fist. It was mysterious, powerful, and had a hint of desolation. This was the Jiang family's powerful martial skill that came from the primordial era. Not bad. Seeing this, the corner of Tianyang's mouth curled up, and a trace of satisfaction appeared in his eyes. Jiang Ling and the white-haired young man's attacks came one after another, making it impossible for him to dodge. However, did Tianyang need to dodge? The great void sword embryo appeared in his hand. Around him, 10 rays of light bloomed at the same time. Heaven Realm. The fusion of the 10 great essences, and the fusion of the 10 great essences that had absorbed all the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, had reached its peak in the truest sense of the word. In terms of power, it was far more powerful than before. Feeling the powerful force, Tianyang smiled and slashed out with the black sword in his hand. Boom! The slash seemed to tear the sky and earth apart. It split the sky and earth. The sky and earth were connected by the slash of the sword. A terrifying sea of sword radiance filled their vision. The white-haired young man and Jiang Ling's pupils contracted as they sensed the danger of death. Blood flames appeared on their bodies. It was just a slash, but they were forced to burn their true origin and blood. Boom! Boom! Primordial Desolation Fist Technique? Snow Goddess's Fox Fire Palm Technique? At this moment, they were all turned into dust. Chapter 1674. There was a sword mark that connected heaven and earth. It was followed by a sea of swords that engulfed everything. Even the most powerful peak demigod under the eldest young master of the Jiang family, who was second only to Shuizhe in the god of snow's lineage, could not resist the attack at all. Tianyang easily destroyed all the attacks and turned them into dust. That's quite powerful. Tianyang raised his eyebrows and was surprised. I thought they would be weaker. The fact that these people were able to fight with Guqing and even use some methods to keep Guqing from interfering meant that their strength was definitely extraordinary. Although Guqing killed most of them in the end, the 2 most powerful ones were still left behind. Tianyang thought that the 2 of them would be able to handle the attack. After all, he had not used his full strength. However, it seemed that his 10 origin sources had been starved for too long. After devouring a part of the 100 Patterns Elixir River, they became so powerful. Cough, 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 cough. 2 strange coughs were heard. Vaguely, streaks of red light flashed in the light. The sword radiance disappeared and the entire Emperor Qing's secret treasure became dark. The white-haired young man and Jiang Ling's battered figures were revealed. You? How did you? Jiang Ling spat out mouthfuls of blood and his aura was extremely weak. Previously, he had used the fist technique that was passed down from the primordial era and had been improved by the Jiang family for countless generations. With this fist technique, Jiang Ling had once defeated an enemy of the same level with a single move. Moreover, he could escape even when facing a godly state expert. However, in front of Tianyang's attack, he was like a piece of paper and turned into powder easily. The white-haired young man from the god of snow's lineage looked no better than Jiang Ling. After all, he was in the same situation as Tianyang. His strongest killing move had been broken by Tianyang's sword, and he had been severely injured. Who are you? The white-haired young man roared. He did not believe that such a powerful person would be a nobody. Now, if Tianyang said that he was the strongest killing move of the primeval Jiang family hidden in the dark, he would believe it. He's just a nobody, Tianyang said with a smile. You! Hearing this, the white-haired young man's face instantly turned ugly. However, he knew that he was definitely not a match for Tianyang in his current state. He turned around and fled with the snow goddess's people. Jiang Ling's face changed when he saw this. He circulated his remaining true yuan and planned to escape. However, while Tianyang was able to release the people from the snow god's bloodline, there were people who would not allow Jiang Ling to escape even if he wanted to. "Traitor, you want to leave just like that?" An indifferent voice sounded. Then, crimson flames covered the area within 1,000 meters. Then, Jiang Xian appeared beside Tianyang. Although his face was still pale, he was in a much better state than Jiang Ling. "Jiang Xian?" Jiang Ling's face changed drastically when he saw Jiang Xian. "You're actually still alive?" Jiang Ling looked as if he had seen a ghost. He had seen how Jiang Xian fled in a sorry state with his own eyes. Even if he had been hit by Shuizai's attack, he would have died. Even if Jiang Xian had the heavenly true flames, he would not have been able to withstand Shuizai's terrifying power of extreme frost. "Could it be you again?" Jiang Xian turned around and saw Tianyang's calm face. His face instantly darkened. "You didn't give me face and attacked the Dragon Hall. Now you even dare to ruin eldest young master's plan. I think you're courting death," Jiang Ling said ferociously. Even though he was surrounded by Jiang Xian's heavenly true flames, he was not afraid at all. Behind him was eldest young master of the Jiang family. He was the most legitimate successor of the Jiang family. No matter how talented Jiang Xian was, he could only give in to eldest young master of the Jiang family. Unless Jiang Xian was really arrogant to the extreme. "Where did you get the courage to be so arrogant in such a situation?" Seeing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and revealed a look of interest. He was already so arrogant outside. Now that he was almost beaten to death inside, he was still so fearless. Could it be that Jiang Xian had something on her? Behind this guy is eldest young master of the Jiang family. Meanwhile, Jiang Xian spoke with a livid expression. He's the most legitimate successor of the Jiang family. Although he's not talented in martial arts and is a debauchee, he's still the eldest son of the Jiang family. If nothing goes wrong, eldest young master of the Jiang family will inherit the Jiang family. However, because my talent is far greater than eldest young master's, some elders came to support me. There are also other younger generations of the Jiang family who are more talented than eldest young master. That's why there are changes," Jiang Xian said. Tianyang said, "Oh, since you know all this, how dare you surround me with your true flames of destiny?" Hearing this, Jiang Ling immediately smiled ferociously. "Let go of me now, and I can still spare your life. Otherwise, if Third Elder knows what you did to eldest young master's faction in Emperor Qing's secret treasure, you know the consequences." With the most legitimate successor of the Jiang family as his backer, Jiang Ling was naturally as arrogant as he could be. Jiang Xian did not have anything on him. However, in front of eldest young master of the Jiang family, Jiang Xian had everything on him. Jiang Ling might not dare to be so arrogant in front of the goddess of snow. After all, the goddess of snow and the archaic Jiang family were not on good terms. The eldest young master of the Jiang family was only useful to the Jiang family. "And Yang Tian, since you don't dare to kill me, hand over the pills on you and treat my injuries," Jiang Ling sneered. Hearing those words, Jiang Xian gritted her teeth. She waved her hand and the true flames of destiny that surrounded Jiang Ling dissipated. Jiang Ling smiled disdainfully when he saw that Jiang Xian had really stopped. "Even if you have an extraordinary status and are extremely talented, you still have to bow your head in front of me, Jiang Ling Yang Tian," Jiang Ling said arrogantly as he dug his ears. "Why haven't you taken out the thing that I asked you to? Do you really want me to snatch it from you?" Jiang Ling was overbearing and arrogant. He had completely inflated his ego by relying on his status as the eldest young master of the Jiang family. In his opinion, Yang Tian was just Jiang Xian's subordinate. Now that Jiang Xian had admitted defeat, how could Yang Tian not give in? Beside him, Tianyang was speechless as he looked around. Well, there was nothing. Then, the great void sword embryo swept across Jiang Ling. A line of blood appeared on Jiang Ling's neck. Then, a pillar of blood spurted out. Jiang Ling's head was separated from his body. Chapter 1675. A streak of blood suddenly appeared on Jiang Ling's neck. Then, a pillar of blood shot up and blasted Jiang Ling's head open. As for his primordial spirit, it disappeared without a trace the moment the streak of blood appeared. Why should I give face to the eldest young master of the Jiang family? Tianyang tilted his head in confusion. Did Jiang Ling make a mistake? Since the beginning, when had Shao Chen ever given the Jiang clan any face? Did he think that everyone would give face to the eldest young master of the Jiang family? You killed him? Jiang Xian's pupils constricted when she heard that. She looked at Jiang Ling's body that had lost the support of his true origin and was falling to the ground. Previously, Jiang Xian did not dare to do anything to Jiang Ling when he was so arrogant in front of her. He had only been arrogant in front of Tianyang for a few minutes. But Tianyang killed him with a single stroke of his sword? He probably can't be revived. Tianyang nodded and said. He did not seem to care at all. You. Jiang Xian's expression changed when she heard that. Then, she looked at Jiang Ling's body that had completely lost all signs of life and sighed. Only heaven, earth, you and I know. Who else knows? Tianyang smiled and said. Tianyang had killed many people to silence them. Even if the Jiang family had something like a spirit lamp, he did not need to care at all. He could just make up a reason and say that Jiang Ling had died in some danger in Emperor Qing's secret treasure. The Jiang family would have no choice but to believe him. Of course, whether they believed him or not was secondary. If the eldest young master of the Jiang family really wanted to pursue the matter, so what if there was conclusive evidence? They would do whatever the eldest young master of the Jiang family said. It was the same if they did not do so. Phew! Jiang Xian took a deep breath. Jiang Xian knew that very well. However, no matter who killed Jiang Ling, she had to make a statement. She had to declare war on the eldest young master of the Jiang family. However, this is not the most important thing now. Since Jiang Ling dared to be so arrogant, he probably knows something. My location has been exposed, but Shuizhe did not come. It's possible that Shuizhe already knows the location of the treasure, Jiang Xian said with a serious expression. Tianyang's mouth Jiang Xian's words. After all this time, the things that this guy said he wanted to repay him for saving his life were all gone. I will repay you in the future. Jiang Xian was a little embarrassed, but she still took out a few pills from her interspatial bag and consumed them. His originally weak aura had also recovered by quite a bit. Let's go. Shuizhe of the heavens, Shuizhe said in a low voice. Hearing this, the white-haired young man who was in a sorry state and hadn't recovered much until now looked at him. After fleeing, the white-haired young man did not dare to relax at all. He immediately used his fastest movement technique and arrived beside Shuizhe. After all, an expert suddenly appearing by Jiang Xian's side was not good news. He broke Jiang Ling's and my strongest attack in one strike. He even injured us severely. Although Jiang Ling's strength is much weaker than mine, that fellow's life-saving trump card was given to him by the immemorial Jiang family's eldest young master. That was how he managed to survive, the white-haired young man said. Hearing this, Shuizhe frowned. So strong? Are you sure it's not the Dragon Hall and the immemorial Jiang family working together? Only someone from the Dragon Hall can have this kind of strength, Shuizhe said faintly. The Shuizhe frowned. But that guy uses a sword. Oh right, He's the one who had a conflict with the Dragon Hall outside the Azure Cloud mountain range. He seems to be from the Undying Emperor Palace, the white-haired young man said. Shuizhe was stunned when he heard that. The Undying Emperor Palace. It's Yang Tian? Yes. So that's how it is. Hearing this, Shuizhe's lips curled up and a strange light appeared in the depths of his eyes. If that's the case, then that's right. After all, he might be the one that the Undying Emperor Palace is looking for. Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud explosion. An incomparably domineering fist wind directly blasted open the space beside Shuizhe. Immediately after, an incomparably sturdy body crawled out of the hole in the space. I don't know where that guy went. I don't care where he went, as long as he ran away. The man who crawled out of the hole heaved a sigh of relief and said. Then, he looked at Shuizhe and the Shuizhe in shock. Why are you here? Longcorn? According to our speculation, that place is probably one of the treasure vaults of the immemorial Green Lotus Palace. Last time, the people from the Jiang family of the Archean era discovered it too late. When we opened that place, it was already time for the Azure Thearcha's secret treasure to close. So, even I don't know what's inside. Jiang Xian said. Tianyang was speechless. It turned out that Jiang Xian knew nothing about it. It was also possible that the information had been stolen. That was why she led Tianyang to the treasury. If that was the case, it would be a mistake to let go of the few people from the Goddess of Snow's faction in order to catch the big fish. After all, if the people from the Snow Goddess's faction leaked information about him, he would not be able to catch them off guard. Of course, the current Heaven Realm had already reached its peak with the 10 great source energies at its peak. The sword that penetrated the heavens and earth was just a sword that Tianyang did not use seriously. Tianyang had a premonition that if he fully recovered and was able to use the heaven-devouring secret skill, he would be able to fight the black-robed old man and escape unscathed, even if his martial soul didn't sublimate to the extreme and enter the godly realm. All this time, the Heaven Realm has only used the fusion of the 10 origin worlds to release a suppressive force that is far stronger than the other realms to suppress the enemy. Or, you can give me layers upon layers of amplification, and then release the strongest sky sword to kill the enemy. While Tianyang was flying, he was deep in thought. The celestial realm was already the best use of the 10 origin sources. With the fusion of the 10 origin sources, not to mention being invincible in the same realm, even if it was a demigod, the heavenly sun would still be an invincible existence. However, Tianyang still had a feeling that the power of the 10 origin sources had not been unleashed to the limit. Today, after the true meaning of the Heaven Realm's strongest power erupted, this feeling was especially obvious. Although the previous sword was not a martial skill that I have mastered, I used the power of the Heaven Realm well. Maybe I can use this to create another killing move. Tianyang's eyes were bright, bursting with rays of light. Cultivation was not only about obtaining from heaven and earth, but also about unearthing endless treasures in oneself. When the Heaven Realm was born, Tianyang had already unearthed this piece of treasure, but he only used it to smash others. Now, Tianyang seemed to have grasped the key to the real treasure. We're here. At this moment, Jiang Xian spoke. Tianyang looked up. A tall tower towered, piercing the clouds. Green lotuses bloomed in the surroundings.